Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, squirrel friends, and welcome back. We are here to cover the rest of day 4. So yesterday from Lori Vallow's trial. As y'all are probably aware, they don't have court on Fridays. And I'm going to go and try this long crime feed. I think their sound is better than court TV. So we're going to see how it does. So where we left off before lunch was with Sarena Sharpe on direct examination. So this is Lori's friend. So we are going to pick up right here. I think this is right where they start. Cool.
Sorry. No, you're fine.
All right, back on the record. The jury's not present. Parties are present. You ready to bring the jury in?
Say it is.
Defense ready?
Sure, Your Honor.
Is your paralegal coming?
My investigator should be here, but I don't know if he's running behind.
Okay.
Welcome. Happy
All right, let's bring the jury in.
Bring the jury.
Bring the jury.
Thank you.
Okay.
So we were talking before lunch, and you have told us that you sort of spent 2 weekends getting to know Lori Vallow, correct?
Yes,
That was the November of 2018 visit,
with a lot of other people there, correct? Yeah.
and then the March of 2019 visit.
Yes, the girls' weekend,
And that was a much smaller group of people.
correct.
And I think you had said that as Lori started expressing some of these beliefs that went against the LDS religion, that you started sort of questioning her about this.
Correct.
After that, did you feel like she started pulling away or limiting her contact with you?
Yes,
You told us that you had moved to Arizona in end of July or August-ish of 2019, correct?
yes,
Did you ever see Lori again after you moved to Arizona?
twice more.
Can you talk to us the first time that you saw her?
The first time I saw her, Zulema organized a girls' lunch to welcome me, she said. And so Lori was there. She came with Alex, her brother, and basically I said hi. And not much more than that. She sat on the other side of the restaurant, opposite of me. So, and not much contact there, but
Okay. And then what was the other contact you had with her?
I can't remember how it was organized. Perhaps at that lunch, Lori invited the women over to her house to just talk. And she had just lost her husband. And I don't know if I was included by accident or how that happened. I don't remember exactly, but I did go over to her house that night because here's somebody that I knew, and she had just lost her husband, which that's a big deal. And I wanted to find out how she was doing and what was going on.
Did you know anything at that time about the loss of her husband? Like what had happened?
I had heard vague things, but I had been across the country, so I didn't know any particulars.
Do you recall who was at the house that night?
Multiple women, but I actually don't remember who was there. I think Melanie Gibb was there, and then a few other ladies, but I actually don't remember who.
And do you recall, was that still that same time frame of like either the end of July or the beginning of August?
Yes.
Can you describe for us Lori's demeanor at this meeting, this gathering at her house?
I would assume, like in my estimation, it was more like stoic. I didn't see any like mourning
Happy Annie, do you know if Audrey Barry-Terrio is on the state's witness list by chance?
or crying.
She didn't notice. Well, let me back up. She didn't notice any crying.
I would assume, like in my estimation, it was more like stoic. I didn't see any like mourning or crying.
I'm surprised she didn't say cheerful or joyful, because that's how she seems in her interrogation. Hi, Black Widow, welcome.
After that contact with Lori, did you ever see her again?
No.
Did you know that she had moved out of state?
No, not till long after she already had.
Did you know that she had married Chad Daybell?
Nope.
So basically, after paying your condolences, that was sort of the end of your contact friendship with Lori Vallow?
Yes, I think there might have been a few texts after that just to check up on her and see how she was doing. She had just lost her husband again. So, and I think she was trying to figure out how to move forward, and I was concerned. So, but nothing of substance.
Was your interactions with her via text very limited?
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor.
Oh, all right, on to cross.
Cross-examination.
So I caught a bit of this. I caught a bit of this yesterday, not all of it. And I had some thoughts that started dawning on me that I'm going to share with you guys. I don't know if you guys saw the thumbnail, what's on the bottom of the thumbnail, but we're going to talk about this as we go along. I have some definite thoughts about what's going on with Lori, some of the things that we've heard before, but it became a little bit more readily apparent to me during this cross, just from even the small portion that I didn't see it. I heard it yesterday. I was driving, so.
Ms. Sharpe, did you take an oath when you came into this courtroom today?
Yes, I
So
did.
clearly this is her approach with like every witness, is to like try to imply that they are lying or being dishonest because of this whole, did you take an oath and the perjury and whatnot? And it's just like, come on, dude. The jury's got to be really sick of it. Even though this is normally something that you would save as in a normal trial. You would save it for a witness where you have tons of impeachment material, right? Where like, especially if you know that they're being intentionally dishonest, right? And that's when you would use this. You don't just do this with every witness. I mean, you guys know, I'm just pointing it out that even for the jury who wouldn't necessarily, and more than likely doesn't really know how this normally goes, this has got to seem overwrought, if you will, to say the least.
Did you raise your hand?
Yes, I did.
And I have to say, it definitely seems like to me, the sound is better for long crime. Like, even though there's that crackly sound in the background, like, because the mics are gained up or whatever, I think it's overall louder. So let me know what you guys think.
Did you tell the truth?
Yes, I did.
The whole truth?
Oh, fuck.
Yes.
Nothing but the truth?
Yes.
So help you who?
God.
So can we agree that this court acknowledges that your testimony here today will be accountable to God?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance of this.
Sustained.
All right,
Your
let's hear
Honor,
a
they
banner.
brought up the religion.
That's her response. It's
Oh
sustained.
my
That's the next question.
God. Wow.
Do you believe that your testimony here will be accountable to God?
Yes.
Okay.
That the way she said that, okay, the tone there is like, well, you're clearly going to hell. That's like what I think she wants to convey there to the jury. That's just my personal opinion. 77.
Ms. Sharpe, how many times did we meet in person?
4.
How many one-on-one conversations during those meetings do you think that we actually had? Just you and me. Nobody else around. Just you and me.
Maybe 2.
2 conversations in our whole lives.
Maybe
Just me
3.
and you.
You said during those meetings.
During the 4 times that we saw each other in person, how many times did you and I have a one-on-one conversation where other people were not in the conversation? Just me and you.
I can remember 3.
Okay. And how many times did we communicate on the phone?
Do you want me to estimate? I don't remember how many times.
Sure.
No,
Just an estimate.
no, don't guess. Okay.
I'm not sure how to estimate that. Multiple times?
Like more than 10 or less than 10?
Probably more than 10.
More than 20?
I don't remember.
Okay. And text messages, the same. How many times do you think that we conversed via text?
I don't know. I'm not sure how to answer that again.
Okay, so
Multiple times.
Okay. So would it be fair to say that some of the things that you remember are from other people and not actually from me to you directly?
Perhaps.
Okay. So in the instance when you said that I mentioned to you something about zombies, I would like to know what I said to you exactly verbatim about
Oh my God.
zombies.
Well, I remember we talked about zombies in 2019 for the girls' weekend. You had mentioned zombies.
I mentioned zombies at that weekend out of my mouth and not someone else, but me.
Object to argumentative.
Overruled, you can ask, why don't you rephrase that question?
Okay. So you're saying under oath that I said the word zombies at that meeting, or I'll go with that.
To the best of my recollection, it was that weekend during the girls' weekend, 2019.
And
Again, that was 6 years ago. So like verbatim, I don't remember verbatim, but I think it was that weekend.
So it could have been that someone else was talking to you about zombies, but I was actually there also. Is that correct?
I'm going to object that the witness has answered that question and said it was her.
Overruled, she can answer.
Would you mind restating, please?
Is it possible that someone else said the word zombie and not me at that meeting when we were all there with the girls?
It's possible, but I don't think it was. I think.
Okay, then what did I say exactly about zombies? I want to know the sentence I said to you about zombies.
Hold on.
Again,
Ask questions, okay?
I
make
object to
statements.
asked and answered.
So rephrase your question.
What sentence did I say to you with the word zombie in it?
I'm going to object to asked and answered.
Hold on. I need to get some of these objections. I was just looking for something for some case law here. So what's interesting about this is that she's like, I want you to tell me verbatim, right? When it's like a conversation that was in person from all these years ago. And the only person, to my knowledge, that could try to contradict whatever she says here, by she the witness, would be Lori, right? Unless Lori's going to call witnesses to the stand in her case in chief that were also present. However, we've heard from all the pretrial, hearings and whatnot that all of Lori's quote unquote friends that she wants to call for her case in chief, they couldn't get, no one could get in touch with them, including the defense. So this would be one of those things where Lori's going to have to say, that's not what I said. That would be what she would maybe attempt to do here. But yeah, so this is crazy. And I just want to make sure I get all these
I
objections.
think it was that weekend.
So it could have been that someone else was talking to you about zombies, but I was actually there also. Is that correct?
I'm going to object that the witness has answered that question and said it was her.
Overruled, she can answer.
Would you mind restating, please?
Is it possible that someone else said the word zombie and not me at that meeting when we were all there with the girls?
It's possible, but I don't think it was. I think.
Okay, then what did I say exactly about zombies? I want to know the sentence I said to you about zombies.
Hold on.
It's really stupid because, again, unless this thing was recorded, right, Lori can't possibly know exactly the sentence. It's like no matter what this witness, I'm sure is this is going to be a mess. But if this witness were to answer it, right, the way Lori would handle it is I would again assume it's when she would take the stand. She would just say something different. It doesn't even matter. It's like it's just going to be her word against her friend's word, right? I want to know the exact sentence I said. Who would fucking remember that? Unless it was like 3 words, I killed him, right? That's hard to mess up, or something like that, right? But this whole thing.
Again,
Ask
Okay.
questions, okay?
I
make
object to
statements.
asked and answered.
So rephrase your question.
What sentence did I say to you with the word zombie in it?
I'm going to object to asked and answered.
Technically, it has been asked and answered, but go ahead and answer.
Again, I don't remember verbatim. That was 6 years ago.
Ronnie, let us know if you want any custody.
So it could be possible that it really never came out of my mouth. Is that true?
Okay, I'm going to object again to asked and answered now a third time.
Sustained.
It's up to 81 now. Any want objections?
Ms. Sharpe, who are the 3 Nephites in the Book of Mormon?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
The 3 Nephites? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
In 3 Nephi 28, the 3 Nephites, do you know who they are?
Off the top of my head, no.
You do not know who they are.
No, not off the top of my head.
Okay. In the Bible, do you know of John the Revelator?
Yes.
Do you know of John the Revelator being translated?
I don't remember that, but
Now, she
Don't
says Bible. Is John the Revelator in the Bible? I mean, I would assume she's talking about the Book of Mormon. I don't think that does not sound like a biblical name, but she says Bible, which is interesting.
Remember that? What about in the Old Testament, Elijah? Was he translated?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to
Oh.
relevance.
God, I know.
What's the relevance?
She's
I've
not
been
even letting the witness answer. She's just asking questions and not letting her answer. So they could be objecting for that as well.
accused of being out of the scope of the LDS religion when this is exactly in the scope of the LDS religion.
All right, I guess to the extent you're comparing yourself to these biblical figures, I'll allow it.
I love that because the idea, right? Think about this. I didn't mean to go for it. Okay. The thought of that, right? Like what he just said, that she's comparing herself to these biblical figures. Like, I love that because I mean, she is. And what does that say about her, right?
Comparing yourself to these biblical figures, I'll allow it.
Was Elijah translated? Yes, I believe so.
Okay. But you don't know that John the Revelator was translated as well?
I can't remember.
And
I
then
mean,
the three Nephites.
what Lori could do if she really cared about this, and I don't know that she will, but if this really fucking matters, all this like biblical knowledge or whatever Book of Mormon knowledge, you know, she could bring in, like in her case in chief, like an expert, right? A scholar who, like an expert witness who studies this and can answer these questions instead of just asking these lay witnesses. I mean, because the point, like, instead what she's doing this way is just trying to badger them. It's just awful. There's a lot that's awful, obviously.
Nephites in the Book of Mormon, they're translated as well.
Welcome, Candace.
No, there were three. You asked me their names. I don't remember their
I
names.
wasn't asking their names. I said, do you know who they are?
Oh my God.
in, are you aware of them? I'm sorry. I'll be more specific. Are you aware of the three Nephites in the Book of Mormon?
Yes.
That they were translated?
Yes.
So is it fair to say that that isn't uncommon in the Christian belief system to believe in people being translated?
I don't know if I'm qualified to.
Exactly. And I appreciate her saying that. This is exactly my point. That Lori, this is just not the way to go about it. But also, whenever I heard them say the three Nephites a handful of times there, all I can think about is the old medieval tune, There Were Three Ravens, one of my favorite medieval songs.
Answer that question for all of Christianity.
Right.
Okay.
Let me back that up.
I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question for all of Christianity.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Your answer.
Are you a Christian that believes in the Bible?
Yes.
Object, Your Honor, to relevance.
The judge.
I'll allow it briefly, but hurry up and make your point.
Also, why are we not saying book?
Yes, I believe in the Bible. Of course.
And Elijah in the Bible is translated, right?
Yes.
And you believe in that, right?
Yes.
And you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that would not be out of the scope of what you believe. That's all I'm asking.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Lori, stop with your stupid fucking comments. Dude, by the way, I know I was talking about this movie called The Room that we need to figure out a way to watch. But actually, I wonder, I did look into it, and I don't know that it would warrant, I don't know that I would get a copyright. Anyway, I have the movie. I just don't want to get a copyright strike, but I don't know that it would. Anyway, but I always talk about this movie, right? It's one of my favorite B movies. And there's like so much in that movie that y'all would be probably quoting here because it's so memeable. And this is a perfect opportunity for one of the famous quotes from that movie, which is, keep your stupid comments in your pocket. I wonder if I can pull up that clip just by itself because that's literally so relevant to this. Let me see if I can find that. Hold on.
So when we were having this girls' weekend, what else did we do besides one prayer?
I remember going out to lunch, and we went to the temple, and we did service projects.
So we had a typical fun girls' weekend
Yes.
with 5 minutes of a prayer.
I don't remember how long that prayer was.
But basically, out of the 72 hours that we got together, 5 minutes of it we spent actually praying.
Again, I don't remember how long the prayer was, but
Hang on. I got it. I found it. That was not hard to do. Okay, hold on. I guess it was me saying it, not her. I was the one that was like, Lori, keep your stupid comments in your pocket. That's what
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that correct?
correct.
So that would not be out of the scope of what you believe. That's all I'm asking.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So Lori, keep your stupid comments in your pocket. All right, now let's watch the little clip. It's just 5 seconds. Pull my banner down. All All right, you guys ready? You guys ready for this greatness?
Leave your stupid comments in your pocket.
There it is. Okay, now you know. Now you know. Okay, I'll go back to this.
So when we were having this girls' weekend, what else did we do besides one prayer?
I remember going out to lunch and
Watching it on Discord though is not everybody uses the Discord, and I want to be. I mean, we would do it like a members only. I don't think any like film company has bought the rights to that yet. So I don't know. I'll do some more research into it.
we went to the temple and we did service projects.
So we had a typical fun girls' weekend
Yes.
with 5 minutes of a prayer.
I don't remember how long that prayer was.
But basically, out of the 72 hours that we got together, 5 minutes of it we spent actually praying.
Again, I don't remember how long the prayer was, but that was not, from my perspective, the focus or majority of our time spent.
Okay. How long would you say that prayer was? 10 minutes? Longer?
I don't recall.
Okay. But a tiny portion of our whole fun weekend, right?
It was a small portion, yes.
Okay. How many communications have you had over the past 5 years with Christina Atwood?
Many.
Like how many?
Again, I'm not sure how to estimate that.
Daily, weekly, monthly?
Weekly for sure, sometimes daily.
Okay. So would you say over the past 5 years that your relationship has grown with Christina?
Yes.
And are you related now?
To Christina?
Uh-huh.
No, we're not related.
Oh, as in-laws?
No,
Okay, I wondered. I didn't know.
no.
Your Honor, again, I'm going to ask that the defendant be told not to comment about the questions and testify.
Yes, the jury should disregard that comment after the answer.
Are you still in contact with Zulema Pastenes?
No, I haven't had contact with her in a while.
Are you in contact with Kay Woodcock?
Who? I'm sorry?
Kay Woodcock?
I don't know who that is.
Okay. Are you still in contact with Nicole Earl?
Yes.
How often?
Often. Again.
Weekly or daily?
Weekly, sometimes daily.
Okay. What about Melanie Gibb? Are you still in contact with her?
No, I run into her occasionally, but
You said also in your testimony earlier that I said that I believe I don't need to repent and you were shocked. Is that correct?
yes.
What did I say to you exactly?
Again, I don't remember verbatim. That was over 6 years ago, but something to the effect of you didn't need to repent. Again, I don't know exactly, but or we didn't need to repent, whatever it was. But yes, that's what I remember.
What was the context of that conversation? Like, how would that come up? I'm like, how would that come up?
I don't remember what we were talking about or how that subject was brought to the forefront, but it was, I definitely remember that comment.
You remember that coming out of my mouth to you specifically, not from someone else, but from me to you directly.
Again.
Yes, and it was, I think, in front of all of us, but I'm not very clear on that. I think it was to all of us.
So I have an idea. I think I found a good way to do it. So what I can do is I have the movie. I can just upload it as a video, like private video, just a video file, like, you know, just how you upload a video on YouTube and do it privately. And that way, when it's uploading, part of the process is it checks for like copyright claims or whatever. and like there's different types, right, of like how that can work. But basically, if it will flag something, it would show it that way. And that way, it would be something like, instead of trying to live stream it and then it interrupts the live stream. So that's what I'll do. I'll do it that way. And then if it goes all the way through, then it'll be fine to stream it. So that will solve it. Woo!
From you.
So was I teaching a class that you attended and said something in that regard?
No.
Why would I be the one speaking?
Sometimes we take turns when we speak.
Speculation as to why the defendant would be speaking?
Ha!
I'll let the answer stand. She answered.
Okay. Getting closer to 100 objections.
You said something about being uncomfortable on that weekend. Is that correct? With some of the topics?
Yes.
Why didn't you just leave if you were so uncomfortable?
I was uncomfortable with some of the topics, but I was still there with friends, and I'd flown across the country, so it was not easy to leave. And I didn't feel like I needed to leave at that point.
But you're a grown woman, right? You have your own mind and ideas.
Yes, of course.
So would it be fair to say that you didn't disagree so much at the time, but now looking back on it, you disagree?
I don't think that's a fair comment. No.
And would it also be fair to say that we had a good time that weekend?
Yes, we did have a good time.
And that now you've changed your mind a little bit?
Have any of you guys watched Parks and Rec, the show? Because there's an episode there where the main character Leslie Knope like goes out on a date with this dude named Ben, who they end up marrying later. But anyway, there's some reason. Oh yeah, she has like a disciplinary hearing for a number of reasons. But anyway, she calls Ben in, the dude who came to this thing. And the whole point, the premise of the whole thing is like the whole point that the reason she did it was because she wanted to be able to have him under oath say whether or not he had a good time at her party. And so it was like, so then she had him. So then he said, yeah, I had a good time or whatever. And then it was like, she had him under oath saying he had a good time. And anyway, this reminds me so much of that, where she wants under oath to say, for her to say if she had a good time. It's really funny.
Fair to say that we had a good time that weekend?
Yes, we did have a good time.
And that now you've changed your mind a little bit?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Change my mind about what?
About what made you uncomfortable?
No, I didn't change my mind.
You had mentioned something about
Yes, Lori?
you were interviewed by the police a couple of times. Is that correct?
Yes,
How many times?
twice.
Who were you interviewed by?
The first time a detective came to my home, his name was Nate Moffat, I think.
Welcome back, Gwen. Welcome back, Angel D.
Okay. When was that about, approximately?
I want to say spring 2020.
Okay. How long was that interview?
I don't remember.
Black Witter.
Like an hour or less? Or
And Your Honor, the witness has already answered the question. She doesn't remember.
Been answered. That's your objection, Miss Lady.
Can you estimate how long that interview was?
Well, from my memory, I don't remember it well. I thought it was only a few minutes, but
Okay.
I think it was longer than that, perhaps.
Longer than a few minutes?
Yes.
What about your second interview? Who was that with?
That was with 2 detectives from Idaho
And where did that take place?
in the Chandler police station.
And how long was that interview?
That one I remember being longer, for sure. Over an hour, perhaps an hour and a half.
False long. False long.
And what did you exactly have to contribute to the police for an hour and a half with someone that you have only met 3 times in person in your life?
Objection, speculation, relevance.
Okay.
Sustained.
What were they interested in you telling them?
So
And I'm going to object to speculation, relevance.
Sustained.
we're going to get into what I think Lori's doing.
What did you tell them about me in those interviews?
Objection, overbroad.
Oh,
Foundation.
also calls for hearsay.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Sustained.
We're at 92. So here's the thing. We're at 92. We're going to probably get past 100. I would be shocked if we don't. We're going to break 100 objections. So here's the thing. This is one of the parts I think I heard yesterday that, again, I didn't see the whole thing. I just was listening to, caught some of this. We've been talking about why is Lori doing this, like the opening of the door, right? Eliciting this testimony. And we've seen this with numerous witnesses. But here it became blatantly obvious, like dawned on me like a light bulb moment. I was like, oh my God. Is her strategy here not a good one, right? But is her strategy here to try to force a mistrial? Because it's really the only thing that makes any type of sense, right? Now, this could also be one of the reasons why she wanted to go pro se, because you can't do this as a defense attorney, right? This is what I'm saying. It's misguided, right? She doesn't understand how opening the door works, which is why clearly they keep cautioning her about this. But she doesn't care because this is my opinion, right? She doesn't care because she's already got life sentence anyway in Idaho, right? It's like worth a shot, right? What's she have to lose, basically, right? What does she have to lose? So I think that she thinks, and incorrectly thinks, that if she can get somebody to say on the stand something about what she did with the kids, right, or Tammy, like specifically enough, not just the names. It started with the word Idaho, and I was like, oh my God, right? And then like it's been building from there. We know about the affair with Chad, right? We know that they got married. We have, I know that the kids get brought up at some point. I think, well, the kids have already been brought up, right? But I think with Kay, again, I didn't see all this yet. It's going to be my first look. I'm really excited to watch this. But I think that for like a quick second there, something happened, something comes up about one of the kids being missing or something. Anyway, I think Lori is thinking she can force a mistrial if she just keeps trying to get the door opened. Now, the state, they're objecting here, right? Now, here's the thing. Like for these questions and the state's objecting, I think the state's onto her games because they don't have to object. Like they're objecting for relevancy and all the other stuff. They could let her dig her own grave, right? They could let her dig her own grave. They don't have to object here. Like the real reason the state's objecting for these specific questions is because it possibly could open the door, right? Now, normally in a normal trial where you've got attorneys on both sides, the state would not object. They want the door to be open. They want, we saw this again in Murdoch as a great example. The defense opened the door on themselves 3 times over. And what happens when that goes on, right, is then they get rid of the jury, and outside the presence of the jury, they talk about this because it can be considered an appellate issue, right? And the judge is going to look at it, and the judge is going to assess, did the defense really open the door on themselves? Now, again, using Murdoch as a great example, because for side of the road, the state tried multiple times to get that in. They outside the presence of the jury, they said the defense opened the door, and Judge Newman said, not yet, not quite, it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. And that happened time and time again until eventually, I forget what specifically it was, but some testimony came out on cross-exam, right? And it was enough to have opened the door. And so they make a thorough record, 404B issues, whatever the case may be. In that case, it was 404B was the analysis there, prior bad acts. But here it's all very different because she's pro se. So whereas normally the state wouldn't object here because they want Lori to open the door or they would want the defense to open the door on themselves. Because it's Lori, they're objecting, and there's other grounds for objections. That's what they're objecting, relevance, here's whatever the case may be. But Lori's trying to get it in. This is the weirdest game of like opening the door. It's all very weird, right? Lori, I think Lori wants the door to be opened or wants this testimony to come out, thinking she can force a mistrial. But that's why the state is so careful, is objecting, right? On other grounds, because I think they know that's what she's trying to do. And it's just, so does that make sense to you guys, how I'm explaining it? That's really funny, MCAT. No pun intended on the dig her own grave, right? I know. Welcome, DSN. Welcome. So does that make sense what I'm saying to you guys? Like, because we've all been wondering, like, why is she doing this, right? She knows about opening the door. It just dawned on me with this witness because of her tenacity about trying to get these questions in that would so clearly, like the answer would be bad, like under normal circumstances. And it dawned on me, I was like, oh my God, she thinks she can try to force a mistrial. But she can't if the state just objects, right? If the state cuts that line of questioning off and the state keeps objecting, right? Which is what they're going to do. So let me know if you have any questions about that. We'll talk more about it too as we go along.
Do you feel like you have something to offer here today in relation to the crime that I'm charged with?
Objection relevance goes to the final opinion.
Ms. Sharpe, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with my brother or anyone else to murder my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, I did not.
Thank you. No more questions.
Be direct.
So her task is going to be to try to, if she is indeed trying to force a mistrial, which is what I think she's doing, she's going to have to hope, I guess, that some witness is going to answer quick enough with something damning enough before the state can object. Now, remember, these witnesses for the state would have been prepped. It was really obvious watching Nancy Joe, right? That they know they have to be very careful of what they can and can't say. And it's for that reason. Again, normally, in a normal situation, right? And let's just say a witness is being prepped. They would be told something like, okay, you can't say this or that or the other thing, like on direct, right? But again, they're not going to, the state wouldn't ask questions that would elicit that, or they would limit it. Like you saw that with Adam. Don't say what you heard, but just say whether or not you heard you know what I mean? Like just a yes or no answer, right? For example, okay. But again, normally on cross, it's like that's how the defense attorney it'd be up to them to ask the questions in a way that wouldn't elicit testimony that normally is damning for them, right? This is just the opposite of what we normally have. Normally you have them trying to tiptoe around issues that could be problematic. And here you have Lori trying to get those issues out, and the state objecting. So again, so it would be a matter of a witness. In this case, I would imagine the witnesses were probably told on whether it's direct or cross, you can't try not to say these things, right? So it would just be a matter again of of whether or not a witness, to answer the question, there's no way around it, and this comes out, and the state would have to just be asleep at the wheel. So it'll be really interesting. Welcome back, Backwood Beats. Happy to see you again as well. So now we're on to redirect. Okay. That's what I think she's doing.
We were asked a lot about taking notes.
I think that could be one of her reasons wanting to go pro se, because you can't do that as a defense attorney. You can't intentionally try to force a mistrial. You can't, right? But Lori Vallow knows she has certain leeway being pro se, right? And this is going to be done very carefully. Like, in other words, every time that they go off to sidebar and stuff, the judge is telling her, like, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it, right? So it's like she has the knowledge. Even though she's pro se, she has the knowledge. She knows she can't do this or that, but she's going to try to do it anyway.
Do you take that seriously?
Yes, I do.
Crazy.
Is everything that you told the jury here today the truth to the best of your knowledge?
To the best of my memory and knowledge, yes.
So when you don't remember something, you've been asked to try to guess. You don't remember how long something is, but you're not making up things in here.
I'm trying not to. I'm trying to go for my best memory.
It's been 6 years since you attended these meetings, correct?
Correct.
So you don't remember the number of phone calls that you and Lori had 6 years ago?
No, not at all.
You didn't keep tally marks of them through your days, put them on your nightstand so you could remember it later?
No.
I mean,
How about the
this
text
isn't
messages?
even-
You tally those up for you so later on you'd be able to remember that you had 50 of them or 100 or whatever it was?
No.
thing is, like, this isn't even necessary. Like, here's what's so funny. Like, this prosecutor really doesn't even need to redirect. Like, Lori didn't, the jury's not dumb. The jury can tell that those questions that Lori had, like, this is all dumb. Of course she wouldn't know. Of course she didn't keep a tally mark, right? So, I mean, if anything, the prosecutor's in a way falling into, like, the trap of being annoyed by Lori by even following up on any of this. But anyway, yeah, Lori out here treating legal boundaries like speed bumps, for sure. For sure.
Definitely not.
Are there things that stand out in your memory that you recall very well?
Yes, there are.
Is one of those the fact that Lori Vallow told you that you didn't need to repent or that she didn't need to repent?
Yes.
Was another one of them her telling you that her husband was possessed by an evil spirit that she named Ned?
Yes. Definitely remember that clearly.
Right. One of that is something you would not forget, right?
You were asked about whether being translated was something unusual to you. When you are reading the Book of Mormon or the Bible, are there biblical figures within those books who are translated beings?
Yes.
Was it not something that you had heard people tell you that they were?
Correct.
And
I'd never heard that before.
So you read about it
Yes.
by prophets and people like that?
Yes.
You were also asked about that girls' weekend, and I believe that the defendant said that you did a prayer. So you have more than one prayer over the weekend? Did you guys pray together?
I can't remember specifically, but I assume we prayed over the food and we prayed up, there was probably multiple prayers.
If I were there, I'd pray that Lori doesn't kill me.
My guess.
Chad doesn't
Is that different than when you guys met
same.
to cast out the evil spirit of Ned inside of Charles Vallow?
Yes, it felt different.
So you wouldn't equate a prayer as identical to doing a cast out.
Resting.
Correct. They're different kinds of prayers.
Yep. We've heard this in the Idaho trials.
You were asked about why you stayed there that weekend. As someone who was a grown woman and strong in your faith, did you in fact question Lori when she talked about not needing to repent?
I don't remember how I responded. I definitely pondered that for a while. I remember talking to others. I can't remember if I spoke specifically with Lori about that at that time.
I mean, here's
You
the thing,
were,
too, right? Here's the thing. If you're someone who's impressionable and nice and non-confrontational, then you've got someone like Lori who's like saying crazy shit, but also like, being really, like, what's the right word? In charge, right? In charge, controlling the thing, and then saying that they've got these special powers and they're this or that. You could see how somebody who, when they're not thinking before criminal activity is happening, right? That you would maybe think it's strange, but it's totally reasonable to be like, that to think that somebody in this situation would not want to go up to Lori and be like, hey, that's wackadoodle, da da da. I mean, what happened? People that did that got rated, dark, right? So anyway.
even though that was something you knew not to be within your faith, you didn't just pack up and run away.
No.
Were there other women there that you were also friends with?
Yes.
People who you're still friends with?
Yes.
Aha. The friend group still exists.
These women that you are still friends with, is anything about your relationship with them changed the fact that you remember Lori saying she didn't want to repent?
I don't think so.
Like you didn't say, hey, Christina, I feel like just making up something to say against Lori. what do you think we should talk about?
No.
You didn't sidle up to Nicole and say, Nicole, let's make up a story about Charles being possessed by Ned. What do you think?
No.
Those are just your memories.
Those are my memories.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Are there any questions from any member of the jury? If so, please pass those questions forward. I'm not seeing any. All right, you can step down, ma'am.
Okay. Take a moment to say something here. DSN says, if I left every time I attended a conference and encountered one nutcase, right? So this is a good moment to say, so remember I was just talking about how I had this idea for watching The Room, and then I thought, oh, I could upload the video and then see what happens. So I forgot I actually had like a short little clip already on my computer, and it's a really famous clip for people that know that movie. And so I tested that out, and I was like, because it only took like 20 seconds to upload. And I thought, if anything's going to possibly get like, if something's going to trigger like a content ID claim or copyright or anything like that clip probably would. It's like the Oh Hi Mark clip. Anyway, so I tested that out, and it did not. There were all checks complete, no issues found. So that bodes well for us maybe being able to watch this together, and we would just do it. We would do it members only, but that might end up being our next members only live stream. So fingers crossed for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I think who's their next? Oh, they have some forensic people, I think, and then they have Kay. Okay.
My name is William McDonald, W-I-L-L-I-A-M, McDonald, M-C-D-O-N-A-L-D.
Thank you.
Order here and have a seat to my left.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is William McDonald. I am a retired police officer with the city of Chandler.
What are you currently doing?
I am currently teaching criminal justice at Williams Field High School in Gilbert, Arizona.
Dude, that is so cool. There's no high schools here that have freaking criminal justice that I know of. At least not a public school. That's awesome.
So you told us you previously worked with the
cool
Chandler
to
Police
take
Department.
that.
How long were you with them?
I was with the Chandler Police Department for approximately 22 years. I'm sorry, 26 years.
Oh, that's a big difference. When did you retire?
I retired in November of 2022.
Okay. Can you tell us what your different jobs were at the Chandler Police Department?
As with all officers with the Chandler Police Department, I started off in patrol. I worked a patrol position for about 18 months, after which I switched over to more of a community services team. I spent 2 years with that team, after which I transferred to detectives and spent the remainder of my career in detectives, working primarily internet crimes against children and digital forensics.
Can you talk to us about specifically your training and education relating to extractions of cell phones?
Oh,
When
boy.
it comes to cell phones, I have extensive training in the use of the software that we use to extract that data.
Celebrate,
I am certified in the use of the
celebrate.
Celebrate suite, which is one of the primary tools that we would use to extract data and organize data extracted from the cell phones. I was also trained, although they did not have a certification process, in several other platforms used with cell phones.
Did you ever go to any type of digital evidence examiner courses?
Absolutely. Beginning in 2001, when I began working digital forensics, I attended numerous courses on digital forensics, hundreds of hours worth of training, and I hold several certifications in digital forensics
I wonder,
related to.
it's funny thinking, this just now dawned on me because Sarena in Arizona, I wonder if any of these, and I don't know him or other people, but any of these people that testify that are cell phones, forensic people, especially if they bring in anybody to cell towers, I wonder if any of them had training under Sarena, because that would seems possible, likely.
Computers and, as previously discussed, cell phones.
So by 2019, what were your duties at that time at the Chandler Police Department?
By 2019, my primary duties were to conduct digital forensics examinations on computers and cell phones. I was also responsible for training new members to the computer crimes unit, in addition to assisting with internet crimes against children investigations.
In your role, were you regularly asked then to examine cell phones and try to extract data from them?
Yes, I was.
Can you talk us through, if you are handed a cell phone, what do you do?
Once we received the cell phone, and we would usually be given additional information at the time, usually from the case agent or the investigating detective, such as if there was a search warrant involved or anything like that, we would review the search warrant, make sure we had legal authority to do whatever it was they were asking us to do. We would then obtain the cell phone or whatever item we wanted to examine. My process was to start by taking pictures of the phone or the device prior to removing it from any evidence packaging. Once those pictures were taken, I would remove the cell phone from the packaging, take additional pictures to document.
Candace, oh my God. Candace says, I used to do Kundalini yoga and I ended up on a second floor walk-up studio with a load of very rich people who did, and a lot of soap opera stars. And the guy who was the head of a cult, it was wild. Yeah, sounds like you've got some stories to tell. Holy crap. That is very interesting. Do you know the name of the cult? Wow. I mean, I wish I had that experience. I think it'd be surreal to meet a cult leader person. I've never have.
Document condition of the device. Once the pictures were taken, I would attempt to power on the device to make sure that it had been placed in airplane mode, which would prevent any additional changes being made or outside people being able to access the device to make changes while it was in our possession. If it was in airplane mode, I would then attach it to whatever piece of software or hardware we were going to use to copy or extract the information from the phone. Once that process completed, which you would usually create just a single file, which for most of us would be meaningless, it was just a container file. And by a container file, I mean a file similar to, if you think like a box. The container file is the box. Initially, that box is empty, and we can put additional files inside of it. These container files would then be entered into, usually we would use the Celebrite software, as we did in this case. And that software would kind of go through the box and put everything in an organized manner, a manner in which people could read it and make sense of what that information was. We would then create a report, which we would provide to the case agents, and that would pretty much conclude our involvement. We would finalize everything by taking everything that we created, all of our files, all of our reports, notes, pictures, everything, and we would store them on an archive server at the Chandler Police Department.
All right, going to go through a couple different words you said and have you explain them for us, all right?
Certainly.
So starting with first, extraction. What does that mean?
Simply put, extraction means we are copying the information on the phone to another device, say a thumb drive or another hard drive or something that we have prepared forensically, which means it contains no data.
So when we're talking about extraction from, say, a phone, you're talking about you're copying contact lists and text messages and photos and emails or search histories, anything that we have on our cell phone.
Correct.
Okay. Can extraction of a cell phone include GPS or locating data?
It can.
Mm-hmm.
When you have extracted this, you talked about it not being in a format that people can understand. Can you talk to us just a little bit more about that?
So essentially these single files, when we have copied or extracted the information from the cell phone, it creates this single container file where all of the information is in there. That information is in the form of database files, other proprietary type files that without appropriate software or specific software to actually be able to read that information, it would be extremely difficult to piece it back together manually.
And so that's what you said, the Cellbrite software helps to put that in a way that we can read it?
That is correct.
So when you use the Cellbrite system, does that put the data together, like all of the text messages are now together and all of the emails are now together?
Yes, ma'am.
Rather than just being jumbled everywhere, basically.
Correct. It will put text lines together. It will extract date and time information. As you mentioned previously, it can extract GPS and location information. It will extract pictures, and it puts all of those together.
It's so funny. I never would have thought in a million years that I would like get all excited every time I hear the words like GPS or location data or like cell tower or anything like that. Like, but I hear it and it's like somebody said the word bot. I just never would have thought that would have been me, but here I am. Oh my God, sorry, I did not mean to do that. I messed it up. Hold on. I got too excited. See, I wasn't even kidding. Okay, let's see where we were.
Put that in a way that we can read it?
That is correct.
Yep, okay.
All of the emails are now together.
Literally
Yes,
where
ma'am.
we were.
Rather
Excellent.
than just being jumbled everywhere, basically.
Correct. It will put text lines together. It will extract date and time information. As you mentioned previously, it can extract GPS and location information. It will extract pictures, and it puts all of those together so that like items are together.
Are you responsible for reviewing or analyzing whatever it is that you extract?
No.
Are you solely responsible for trying to extract the data from a phone, ensuring that that process goes correctly and that it is then parsed into data that lay people can read?
Yes, ma'am. When we extract the data from phones or computers or whatever digital medium we're working.
All right, so a couple things. So remember when Adam was testifying and we were like saying we wish we could see the text messages and stuff? They were being shown, from what I could tell, to the jury. But I would imagine that in terms of what's going to happen, I would think, is whenever they bring in, they're laying the foundation with this dude for the other cell people. And eventually, I would imagine there's going to be someone who's going to go through all the text messages and emails like they do in other cases. And at that point, they will be shown and published to the world. I would imagine that might be why they didn't show us, but also sometimes the cameras are just, I think that the camera people feel like they're not sure what they're quite allowed to show and not show, because there's been different instances where, like I pointed it out, where like different feeds are showing different things. And like, for example, Court TV was like keeping the cameras completely away from the screen when they were watching the body cam. They didn't show any of it, but like on East Idaho News and Law and Crime, they were showing it. So anyway, I don't know, but long story short, I would imagine we will see the full, whatever you want to call it, the full context of that, and have all that whenever, and it'll probably be one of the last witnesses, as it usually is. So he's laying the foundation.
We follow forensically sound procedures to ensure that that data is not changed at any point along the process.
And so you said you also keep the original data file that you
Yeah, Candace, I was asking what year was that, because I feel like I've heard of this. Now, I'm sure there's more than one person who does this jewelry scam, but I'm just curious if it was one of the ones that I've probably heard of. If it was recently, then probably not. But that's what I was asking.
extract in a server so that if anyone wants to look at that, they can do that again?
Correct.
And then the phone itself, does it alter the phone in any way when you do this process? Is it blank after that?
Our process should not change any of the information on the phone. However, with cell phones, because they do need to be on during this process, some system files can change.
Okay, so it could add more data to it potentially?
Potentially, yes.
All right. So
Now, y'all know why that matters, right? Because if it adds any data, then it means other data could be overwritten.
on July 16th of 2019, did you receive a request from a detective in Clan to examine an Apple iPhone that was impounded as item CH131035? And if I can have my paralegal approach with Exhibit 245?
So the item, okay, you got a PIN number. I'm just going to see if they're bringing more exhibits. Elmo, okay, hang on.
Packaging to document how it was packaged, and if there are any evidence seals, what the condition of those seals are.
See, again, they're not even showing this, even though it's just a packaging of a phone. We're like
035. What are we seeing here?
X, I believe, or XS Max.
So they're showing the phone. It's got the little airplane.
This is from connecting in and prevent the phone from connecting to the cellular network or to any wireless networks, which will help secure the data that's on the phone to prevent any changes or from anybody from the outside accessing the device.
Okay. Do you check when you get a phone like this to see if there's a SIM card in there?
I do.
What is a SIM card?
A SIM card is a subscriber, it's short for subscriber identity module, and it's basically a little card that's inside the phone that holds certain subscriber information. It can hold contact lists. It can actually hold a great deal of miscellaneous information. We always check for the
SIM. What's really interesting is like that's all changed now, right, with the eSIMs.
Card as a means to make sure that this phone is actually able to connect to a cellular network.
Did you see one here?
I did.
And then do you also check to see if there's enough battery power?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're just going to go ahead a little bit. I wonder if Lori's going to cross him. Okay, phone calls have been missed.
As in cellular network, the IMEI and the ICCID and MEID are identifiers for the cellular networks. The network, the carrier, and all of that information is just to help identify the device.
Okay. And so that is able to be confirmed when you look at the phone itself, 245?
Correct.
Okay. So in this case, after you got this powered up, what'd you do and took those photographs, documenting what you're doing, what'd you do?
Once we had taken the photographs, we'd ensured everything, the phone was in airplane mode. In this particular case, I used a device called a gray key device. I attached the phone to this gray key device and configured it to conduct what is called a full file system extraction of the iPhone. A full file system extraction is pretty much the best copy that we can make. It copies all the data off the phone, including anything in deleted space, any user files, any system files. It pretty much copies everything that's on the phone for us to examine later.
Okay. Now, does technology continue to improve in our world?
All the time.
So you did this in 2019, right?
Correct.
So whatever the newer technology is not the same as what it may have been back then.
That would be fair to say, yes.
In terms of technology, have you seen changes in Breaky and Celebrite over the years that you were using it?
I did.
And as each new version came out, did that ever cause you to find that data was wrongly recovered, or just that there was more data recovered?
In my experience, I never observed that changes in the software, updates to the software, would result in previously found data being changed or omitted or deleted or anything like that. What we would find is it would change the format and how that information was presented. On occasion, as things really did change and bigger versions came out, sometimes it would have the capability to acquire additional information that maybe it could not acquire prior.
So maybe it was better at finding deleted items or parsing things together.
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall about how long that process took to use the gray key to extract that full file system?
As I recall, it was approximately 1 hour.
So after you use the gray key, is that where sort of everything's jumbled in a box?
Correct. That's the gray key created that single container file with everything from the phone inside of it.
So did you use something else at that point to allow detectives and other people to be able to access and look for specific things?
I did. Once we have that single container file, I took that file and I opened it up in a program called Celebrite Physical Analyzer. That physical analyzer software is what went through that container file and put everything in a more readable format for detectives or whoever else needed to view the contents of the phone.
Yeah, it's funny, Candace, because Kundalini, so I had a friend when I was in high school at NCSA, I had a friend who was Pakistani. She was actually half Pakistani, half Indian. And so she did a lot about belly dancing, and she was like one of my best friends. So I did belly dancing with her. And like they talk about the Kundalini with that. And obviously it's something completely different than anything related to the cult. Yeah. And it's probably very similar to what the Kundalini with the yoga, I would imagine. But that's a shame. I did not know that anyone was taking Kundalini and turning it into a cult. Although I guess given what we've seen with Twin Flames, I suppose literally people will do it with anything, but it's a real shame because yeah, it's a really old principle that it goes, it's used throughout those Eastern different practices, like again, like yoga and belly dancing. And so anywho.
So that then allowed detectives or others to
go it's also in other practices as well.
To this new report that allowed you to look at a section that had just photos or a section that just had emails.
Correct.
After you used that Celebrite to parse out all that data into these different sections, did you conduct any research on that phone? Or
I did not.
Did you look through any of that Celebrite report?
I did not.
Did you analyze or review any of the data?
I did not.
Did you provide the detectives who then had been working on the case with that to review themselves?
What we would do, since the Celebrite Physical Analyzer software was very expensive and actually required a key in order to use, the Celebrite software allowed us.
I will just say, I'm just thinking about this. This is going to be really interesting. I will say that there is going to be, I would imagine, text communications between Lori and, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they can get into if Chad will come in, right? That could change over the course of this. By the time they get to the person who brings in all the text messages and emails and stuff, I would imagine that initially what the state would be able to only get into is stuff that is proving the conspiracy with her and her brother. Because remember, they dropped charges against Chad. However, I wouldn't be surprised if, as things change as it goes along the way through Lori's cross exam, if maybe there's even some text messages with Chad that come in, especially if they're maybe talking about Alex. I don't know. It'll be really interesting. They didn't even name him, I don't think, as an unindicted co-conspirator, which if they did, they totally could bring in, but what I was thinking is that I would imagine that we will, regardless, get more information. Well, obviously we're gonna get more information. See, in other words, remember how they read all the text messages in Idaho, right? I would imagine that now we're going to get even more because it's going to go back further in time since this murder happened first. And it'll be interesting to see what else comes out. Like, I'm wondering if we'll see some of the earlier communications, right? Are we going to hear more about the storm? I don't know. Time will tell.
To create what we refer to as a reader file, which is a file that they can open in a program called Celebrite Reader, happily enough, and that would allow them to review the data in a free software platform.
So as long as you had the reader, you could then go through all the data that the Celebrite had parsed into these readable formats.
Correct. Anything that was included in when I imported the file or uploaded the file into the Physical Analyzer software, any information that was in the Physical Analyzer software was copied and included in the reader file.
Right?
Did that end your involvement with Exhibit 245, that phone?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Did that end your involvement with Exhibit 245, that iPhone?
Aside from making sure that any files that we created, any pictures that were taken were securely stored, they did.
All right, thank you. I have no other questions.
I have my fingers crossed for
Crossed.
CSN.
Questions, Your Honor?
I'm sorry, did you say no questions?
No questions.
Okay, so just because of this on the screen here, DSN, maybe we will find a video showing Lori was down by the kennels, you know, just like this type of situation here.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. It's a chicken. It's a guinea.
I don't know if there were enough mirrors there for her, but maybe. I would hope so. Chad's got a bird. Stop. Chad's got a bird in his mouth. I'm dying. Okay, so they're going to call their next witness, who I believe is some other, you know, laying some foundation. I don't know what she does. We will find out. And after that, I believe it's Kay Woodcock. So
In the last year or so,
there were jury questions. Let me back up. Hold on. Yay, jury. Okay, here we go.
The question is, if someone were to delete their browser history, can you still pull the history?
on occasion, browser history and any internet data like that, especially on cell phones, over time, if it's been deleted, it can be overwritten. However, if it is more recent, and sometimes by recent, we are actually talking within the last year or so, that information, regardless of it being deleted, can be recovered by the software.
How long can you recover deleted information? Deleted search history?
Follow up from the defense based on that question?
No.
State?
No, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you can sit down. Thank you.
Lori's not going to have the knowledge to question any of the forensic people when it gets more complicated. I mean, she didn't cross this dude, but I mean, you know, just thinking about like the gun dude and she's like a revolver. It's like, I can only imagine it's going to be such a disaster. Okay, so now we have the next witness.
All right, ma'am, you're going to come right up.
Oops.
Please spell your name for the record.
Yes, Marrisa Francisco, Marrisa, last name Francisc.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
All right, you're going to walk around the court reporter. Have a seat just to my left here.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Marrisa Francisco, and I am a forensic scientist with the City of Chandler in the Forensic Services section.
How long have you worked there?
I have worked there since August of 2018. Previous to that, I was employed at the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and I started there in 2004.
So let's kind of go back. What did you do at the Department of Public Safety, DPS?
I started my career in the blood alcohol unit, so my duty there was to test blood for the presence of alcohol. I was in that unit for about 7 years. After that, I transferred to the trace evidence unit, where I was trained to do hair comparisons and fiber comparisons. After that, about 2016, 2017, I started training in the latent print unit. In August 2018, I completed my training at the City of Chandler and have been doing latent print analysis primarily at the City of Chandler.
Can you tell us the training and your education to be a latent print analyst?
Yes, I have.
Great. I'm going to skip over her training. You know what's funny? It took Long Crime a second to get that name up there. I think they were struggling the same reason I was, because I heard her say Marrisa, but I was like, wait, that doesn't look right. That's not normally how it's spelled. And then same with the last name. I think that they took a second, same way I did, because I initially thought, oh, it's got to be Marrisa, but no.
Sort of really general. Can you tell us what latent prints are?
Yes. Latent, by definition, is something that is present but not visible. So a latent print is an impression of friction-rich detail that is not readily visible. Some processing techniques that can be chemical or physical are needed to help visualize those latent prints.
So we talk
For
about
real.
latent prints. We're
Yes.
thinking of people's fingers.
Yeah, I love it.
Where else where do we find latent prints on people?
Yes, let me start with defining what friction ridge skin is. Friction ridge skin are raised ridges on the palms of our hands and the soles of our feet. They are specialized and only located in those two areas. We often have oils and sweat and other residues on our hands, and when we touch an item, we can leave an impression of our friction ridge detail on that item.
Is that what most of us call latent prints, or I left a print behind?
Yes, fingerprints.
You started to talk about oils and things. Do people always leave behind a print?
Oils and things. Like if you just dipped your hand in a vat of vegetable oil.
If they touch an object?
Just kidding.
It actually depends on a lot of different things. First off, the amount of oils and residues on our hands will determine whether an impression is left. Also, the deposition pressure, meaning are we gently tapping on something, or are we like really pushing down on it? That will affect whether an impression is left and the quality of that print. The item itself is very important. Is it something that is receptive to prints? Items that are smooth, like glass, I am more likely to find a print on an item like that versus something that is textured and rough, like a cinder block. I would not expect to find a latent print on a cinder block. The condition of the item,
if you're a criminal,
is also
if
important.
you're someone out there thinking about criminaling, and you're going to rob a place, find a place with lots of cinder blocks and no glass. Hot tip.
How many people may have come in contact with that item.
Don't cry.
All these different things affect whether an impression is left and the quality of that impression. We can very simply think of a stamp, our fingers being the stamps, the oils being the ink, and depending on how the stamp is placed on different items will determine.
If they're catching an unknown, I'm just thinking about for criming these days, right? If there's like an unknown suspect and there's a crime, fingerprints aren't really going to be the most important thing, at least initially, right? It's going to be the fucking cell phone data. Like that's how they get people, or being on video on accident, right? But anywho, yeah.
Determine how that impression looks.
Can environment also impact the quality of, or whether or not a print remains?
Yes, the environment is also important. After a print is left, is it left out to the conditions of rain, or does it get wet? Is there a dust storm? Is it in an area that it has high traffic? Like if a fingerprint is left on a door to a convenience store and 100 people go through there that day, impressions are left. But if I lift those prints, I might not be able to identify them because there are so many prints on top of each other.
And so that goes to the next thing. So are prints something that once you make it, it's permanent and there forever?
It is there until it is disturbed, so it can be there forever.
Can we wipe them away?
Yes.
Can they be smudged away?
They can, yes.
So can someone rubbing an object, like a smooth object, get rid of that?
Yes.
So it's like, what you're telling me is fingerprints are really not all that great, right? Yeah, I mean, that's why, like I said, they are way less important than other things these days.
Different ways or different processes that you use to obtain latent prints or friction ridge detail off of an object.
Yes, there are. First off, I want to define what a non-porous item is. A non-porous item is an item where water or air cannot pass through it. So when I first receive an item, I determine whether it is porous or non-porous, because depending on that, I will use different processing techniques.
So for a non-porous item, what processes do you use to try to find friction ridge detail?
Yes. On non-porous items, the main processing technique that I use is called cyanoacrylate fuming, more commonly known as superglue fuming. So items are exposed to superglue fumes, and the fumes react to any oils and sweat in the latent print, creating a white visible print that is not readily destroyed.
So you've looked at the non-porous item. You don't see any prints on. Do you look visually first?
Yes, sorry. The very first thing we do is I look at the request sheet and see what items are needing to be tested in that case. And also I look to see what the requesting officer wants done with the case. Sometimes they are requesting that the item be swabbed for DNA. If an item is requested to be swabbed for DNA, I have to use clean techniques to help reduce and limit contamination. So clean techniques are when I bleach down all surfaces with bleach, I lay down a clean butcher paper, I use sterile equipment, I'm only analyzing and working with one item at a time, and I'm changing gloves between items to help prevent contamination. So if a request sheet requests DNA evidence, I will have to use clean techniques before I swab the item for DNA. After that, I will do a visual examination of the item. Before any processing techniques are conducted, I will take a flashlight and look at the item to see if I can see any latent prints with a flashlight. If I can see a visible print at this point, depending on the quality of that print, I will take a picture or lift that latent before I move on to any processes. So after each processing technique, I will have to document what I find with either photography, scanning on a scanner, or lifting with powder.
So you talked about photographing these latent prints. How do you do that? Like how do you take a photograph of that to ensure it's the right?
So here's the thing, for anyone who's been following a Casey Anthony trial coverage, you know, during the state's case in chief, there was that FBI analyst, right, who was checking the duct tape and testified to having seen something that looked like the outline of a heart, not a heart sticker, but the outline of a heart or whatever. And when asked, you know, why she didn't photograph it, she said, oh, well, we don't photograph it. We don't photograph these. We don't photograph it. She said they don't photograph it until it's gone through all the other steps. So like after, for example, after the fingerprint, because this was the fingerprint, latent print person, right? And after that, it was going to be sent on for other testing, like question documents, DNA, other shit, right? Just like what she's describing, where she's doing a clean process, it's going to go somewhere else after. And what this FBI analyst said is, no, we don't photograph it. We don't photograph it until like the very end or something like that. It was an answer that didn't make sense. And then of course, it's like by the time she got it back again to take another look, it's gone. Now it's not there anymore. And it just didn't make any sense. I'm like, of course you photograph it, right? Like that only makes sense. So I'm just thinking about how this is an exactly similar situation where she's talking about a latent print analysis that's going on for further testing. And of course you photograph it every step of the way. So I just wanted to point that out.
Right, size or shape or whatever, so you can later use it for a comparison.
Yes, I have training and experience in taking photographs. So in the photograph, I have to have a scale in it. So I have a scale with a case number, and I am just trained to properly use the lighting I need, adjust the lighting, focus it correctly, have it level with the lens of the camera, and I take a picture and document where on the item the photograph was taken.
Okay. So how do you just told us you document where on the item the picture was taken. How do you do that so that you can later go back and say it's in the middle of a mirror or whatever it might be?
Yes, I try to be as clear and concise as possible because, like I said, I have to take a picture after every single step. So I have to take a picture if there is.
So funny, right? This lady said, "Oh, we just don't take pictures at all." She's like, "How could I possibly take pictures? My hands are full." I mean, she gave every excuse for why she didn't take any pictures during that entire examination. That's insane. I mean, this is literal, and what she's saying makes so much more sense, just logically, like obvious, right? Common sense. Wow.
Any latent print of the visible step. And then if I go on to doing the super goofy.
Yeah, Sky Blue, we watched that. That was earlier in this live stream, her with the whole truth, right? So help you got it. Yeah. Oh, we watched that. That was just not that long ago.
I have to take a picture of that same latent. If I go on to another process called dye staining, which we apply a fluorescent dye to even better visualize the image, I have to take that same latent again. So it helps me out to be able to go to find that latent. So I try to be specific on where that latent was found.
Do you, when you are processing a non-porous item and you find what I'll call a partial print or something that looks like friction-ridge detail, do you collect it or do you say right then and there, I don't think that would be useful?
Yes. So when I am examining an item, at that stage, my conclusions are either no latents observed, meaning I didn't see any friction ridge detail at all, no value latents, meaning I did see some friction ridge detail, but I don't believe that I can do anything or compare them at a later point, or latents for analysis. So if I find sufficient, clear, latent print detail, I will take a picture of it. If I'm not sure, I go ahead and take a picture of it because at this point, I am not really determining whether the print is identifiable. I am just saying that I'm taking this picture and I want to do further analysis on it at a later point.
So then for the analysis, are you then, after you process an item and you recover any latent prints that may be useful or which are you later asked to ever compare those recovered prints to known prints?
Yes.
What do we mean by a known print?
Yes. So a known print is known fingerprints that are collected from an individual. They're typically recorded electronically or with ink. So in my comparisons, I am always comparing a latent impression that was recovered or developed versus a exemplar. And I'm trying to determine whether or not the latent could have originated from that exemplar or whether or not those two impressions could have been made by the same individual.
Can you tell us briefly when you are looking at this recovered latent print and comparing it to a known, what are you looking for to be able to make an identification?
I will explain what methodology we use for latent print comparisons. It is called ACE-V, which stands for Analysis, Comparison, Evaluation, and Verification. So in the analysis phase, I'm taking an assessment of the latent and the exemplar and determining whether or not they are suitable for comparison. If I determine they are suitable for comparison, I move on to the comparison phase. This is when I'm observing two impressions and I'm looking for the existence of similarities, differences, or discrepancies. Next is the evaluation phase. At this point, I am rendering a conclusion based on my analysis and comparison. The three different conclusions that can be reached are identification, exclusion, and inconclusive. So identification is the determination that the two impressions originated from the same person. Exclusion is the determination that the two impressions, the latent and the known, were not created by the same individual or they do not have the same source. Lastly, I have a conclusion of inconclusive, and this is where I can neither identify nor exclude the individual from having made the print. So going back to analysis, during the analysis phase, I am looking at a lot of different things. First off, I'm trying to determine, is the print from a finger or is it from part of the palm? And also I'm determining the orientation of the print. If it's from the palm, I can also, depending on the ridge flow in the latent print, I can determine what area of the palm it came from. I'm looking at the shape of the impression. Like sometimes you have like a C-shaped impression and that's this part of the palm. So this is called the writer's palm, and that's where I would look first when I'm doing a comparison. So besides that, I am looking at level 1, level 2, and level 3 detail. Level 1 detail is the actual flow or pattern of the ridges. Our fingers have 3 main patterns, which are loops, whorls, and arches.
You guys think she ever testifies about this ever?
Next, I'm looking at second level detail.
I mean,
I'm looking at the ridge characteristics. So I'm looking at where the ridges end, which we call ridge endings. I'm examining where ridges split into 2 ridges, which are called bifurcations, and I'm marking any dots, which are very short ridges. So I'm examining the latent and I'm marking up all these second level details so that I can later compare it to the exemplar. I'm also noting if there's any scars present in the latent. I'm noting if there's some creases or if there are issues with the deposition pressure or if there seems to be some movement in the latent. I'm documenting all of that stuff in the analysis phase of my analysis.
We have like paralegal pick 249.
Let's do that.
Let me leave that with her.
Oh yeah.
You recognize Exhibit 249 as an item that you were provided and asked to process to see if you could recover any latent print or friction ridge detail.
Now, what is interesting here, now she will probably not be the person to tell us the answer to this. The question will be, did Charles have his fingerprints on the fucking bat? Dude, wow.
And it's a little awkward.
Yes, I do recognize this item.
And were you provided with that Exhibit 249, that bat, and asked to try to recover any latent prints from that bat?
Yes, I was.
Did you? Were there
Can you
any?
tell us, in this Exhibit 249, what did you do to attempt to recover any, and did you recover any latent prints?
Yes, on the request, it was also requested that I process the item with clean techniques because it was also requested that I swab the item for DNA. So I already went through that process and explained that. So I used clean techniques to process this item. And the very first thing I did when I opened up the packaging was I swabbed the textured grip for potential DNA. The reason I swabbed the grip first is because of the texture on that grip, I would not expect to find latent prints on the grip. So I didn't feel that I was potentially ruining any prints because I don't feel that there would be fingerprints on that textured grip. So that was the very first thing I did. And then I did a visual examination of the bat with a flashlight to see if there were any visible prints at that point. And I don't believe there were, but I would have to check my notes.
But looking at your notes, help refresh your recollection as to whether or not you did find anything there.
Yes.
Do you have your notes up with you?
Yes.
Do you want to take a look at those and then let us know when you're done if that has refreshed your recollection?
Refresh your recollection by checking your notes. Yeah. Sorry. I'm such an idiot.
Yes. So at the visible stage, my conclusion was that there were no latents observed at the visual stage.
I'm going to put Exhibit 35 up here just so that we can all kind of see what we're talking about.
Can we see? Thank
So
you.
the gripped part here is what you were talking about that you swabbed because you did not believe that prints would be recoverable on that texture that was on that.
Correct.
Okay. So then you visually look, you don't observe any latent prints or friction-rich detail.
Correct.
What did you do next?
I then use a processing technique of superglue fuming.
And
Remember, also, I will say that given Lori's and Alex's stupid story was like that Tylee had the bat, right? And then eventually Charles had the bat, right?
you
So
used that process. Did you locate or recover any latent prints or friction-rich detail?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us how many and where?
Yes, I recovered 2 impressions that I took pictures of, and I would have to look at my notes to refresh where they were collected from.
If looking at your notes would help refresh as to where you located those, please do so, and then let us know when you've been refreshed.
oh my God, this is exciting. I should probably won't be able to tell 2, but I hope so.
I'm ready.
Where did you locate those 2?
The first one was recovered in the W of the Rawlings.
Okay.
That was above the diameter. I think Rawlings is also on the other side. So that's why I stated that it was the one that was right above where the diameter is. And the second one was recovered in between the G and the diameter.
Now, you told us that what you are recovering doesn't always look like a finger, right? When you were recovering these latent prints, were you able to tell by just recovering them if it was a finger or, like you told us, a palm? When you looked at it, were you able to immediately identify where they came from?
They appear to be fingerprints.
Was there anything about the shape or, I guess, the shape of them that made you think that they were fingerprints?
The first image, it was just the shape of the impression just indicated to me that it was a fingerprint. The size of it indicated to me that it was a fingerprint.
Was the other one, the second print, slightly, I guess, not as clear on whether or not it was a fingerprint or potentially from some other area?
Correct.
Were you asked to then compare those 2? Well, let me ask you, when you obtained these 2, you told us there were 3 different levels. Obviously, you collected something. Did you believe these were able to make identifications, or what did you determine about the clarity, the detail of those 2 recovered prints?
For both impressions, in my analysis, I determined that both impressions were NVID, which stands for no value for identification. This means that the latents lack sufficient clarity, quantity, and or uniqueness to identify, but may be suitable for exclusion. So the impressions were possibly excludable, but I would not be able to identify who made those impressions.
So were you initially asked to try to identify them to 3 individuals?
Yes, I was first asked to compare the 2 impressions to 3 individuals.
And who were those 3 individuals?
Could I look at my notes, please?
Yes, if that would help refresh your recollection.
Yes, I was initially asked to compare the 3 impressions to a Charles Vallow, a Lori Vallow, and an Alexander Cox.
So you told us, though, they were of no value for identification. So did that sort of end that request?
Yes, so when there is only prints that are determined to be no value for identification, we routinely do not compare those prints, but we say, if you still want us to compare it to anyone, please let us know. But initially, we are not going to try to compare NVID prints to any individual because they cannot be identified.
So did you then, were you then requested to see if you could make any exclusions?
I was then requested to compare the 2 impressions to Charles Vallow to see if I can determine whether the 2 impressions did not originate from Charles Vallow.
Starting with the first impression that you found above the W, but the other side of the bat from what we see in 35 here, where there's a diameter marking. Were you able to reach any conclusions in looking at the prints from Charles Vallow and that recovered print?
Again, I went through the ACE-V process, and during the comparison phase and evaluation phase, I determined that the first latent, was inconclusive to Charles Vallow, meaning that I could neither identify nor exclude him from having made the impression.
So does that just mean there's just not enough in that print to do anything with?
Correct. So it lacks sufficient agreement in the detail to identify, and it lacks sufficient disagreement in the impressions to exclude.
And is that common when you have a latent print that just doesn't seem to have the level of detail?
I like the way she explained that. Let me tell you why. Because usually when we're hearing this whole thing and it's like, okay, yeah, it's inconclusive, right? Generally, when we're hearing that, it's typically in a situation where it's about the defendant and the state wants it to sound to the jury like the defendant did a thing, right? There's so many examples. So let's just pretend here. Okay, let's just pretend here that And I would imagine she seems like the type of witness who would answer this the same regardless. But let's just pretend it was a different witness doing the same job. And let's pretend that they were looking instead for Lori, right? Like that, it's like the print in question is Lori's print on that bat, right? A different witness might explain this differently to be like, inconclusive just means we can't rule her out. Because that could suggest to the jury, oh, it still could be her, right? The way she explains this is very accurate, right? Because this whole inclusive thing, when we hear this with whether it's with DNA or whether it's with tool mark analysis, it really does sound to the jury like, oh, well, we can't rule them out, so therefore they're still ruled in, right? That's how they interpret it when it's really kind of misleading. So let's listen to the way she explains this again, because this is going to be true for any case. Whenever we hear insufficient, the definition is going to, or sorry, inconclusive, the definition is going to be true. And this applies to whatever the science is. And it applies to whoever the person is, whether it's the defendant or not the defendant, right? Either way.
Inconclusive to Charles Vallow,
We should always
meaning that I
answer
can
it.
neither identify nor exclude him from having made the impression.
So does that just mean there's just not enough in that print to do anything with?
Correct. So there is not, it lacks sufficient agreement in the detail to identify, and it lacks sufficient disagreement in the impressions to exclude.
So that is I love that answer. I love that answer. They all should be answering it this way. Whenever a witness is asked to explain this whole insufficient, inconclusive, right? It's just, that is exactly what it means. So,
And is that common when you have a latent print that just doesn't seem to have the level of detail just necessary for that?
Yes, that is a common conclusion.
So you're not saying it's Charles, you're not saying it's not Charles, you just can't do anything with it.
I could neither identify or exclude Charles Vallow.
So for the
Very
second
clear.
print, did you also attempt to compare that to latent prints from Charles Vallow?
Yes, I did.
And were you able to reach any conclusions as to that?
Yes, my conclusion was that the latent was inconclusive to Charles Vallow due to lack of detail in the latent and exemplar.
Were you ever asked to try to exclude Alex Cox as having made those latent prints?
No, after I initially did not compare the latents to the 3 individuals on the name comparison, I was only asked to compare the 2 impressions to Charles Vallow.
So you also weren't asked to try to exclude or secondary compare to a Lori Vallow?
No, I was not.
And were you ever asked to compare to a Tylee Ryan?
No, I was not.
here's the thing though, DSN. You're being tongue in cheek. My theory on the bat is I think Alex probably bought that bat and brought it with. Because Charles wasn't living there. That's my thoughts on the bat. And that the whole thing was planned ahead of time to do the whole self-defense thing. And they're like, oh, well, we should get a bat because that makes him seem more threatening. Like, I think Alex probably brought those bats. I don't think they would have been at the house. There's no reason for them to be there. While Charles, I guess, was technically renting the house or whatever, he wasn't there. He wasn't living there. It was just Lori. And they'd only just been there for 3 weeks. So I think Alex probably brought the bat.
That sort of end your processing and comparisons of this bat.
Yes.
And that's why you get the whole dumbass story that doesn't make any sense, where Tylee, in her interview, we watched it, right? And she's like, oh, it's my bat. I had the bat for protection. And it's like, none of it made any sense. I don't think any of that's true. I think Alex brought the bat specifically for this.
Thank you. I have no other questions for this witness.
Okay.
Cross.
I have one question.
Oh, we have a question, apparently. I'm not going to, if it's just one question, I'm not going to update the thing.
You said earlier that the DNA that you collected, was that ever tested?
I don't know.
That's
Is
not
it
my
sent
job,
somewhere else?
Lori.
Correct. So the city of Chandler does not have the capability to test for DNA. Anytime we swab for DNA, we send it to the state lab for analysis.
So you swabbed it and sent it to the lab, and that was the last you heard of it?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Any questions
Hey,
for this
Woodcock
witness from any member of the jury?
Okay, I think it's K. Woodcock time. Oh my God, oh my God. I have not watched all this yet.
I don't see any, so you can step down, ma'am. I think this is a good time to take our afternoon recess. We'll
Okay.
be at recess for
Oh my
15
God,
minutes.
there she is. Oh my God. Mhm. I love Kay so much. Oh my God.
All right, please be seated. We're on the record. The jury is present. State call its next witness. All right, ma'am.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Awesome, Candace.
All right, go and have a seat to my left.
She's amazing. This is an amazing human being, guys, right here. If you guys aren't familiar, she's a force of a woman. She's
Would
amazing.
you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Beautiful person.
My name is Kay Woodcock, Charles Vallow's younger sister.
How old are you?
How old am I today?
Today.
64.
And are you married?
Yes.
Larry.
Where do you currently live?
Lake Charles, Louisiana.
I want to talk to you about,
I'm going to put her on normal speed because you lose some of the, what's the word? I love her accent. It's a very specific accent, and I love the way she talks and explains things. She's a very unique witness, so I'm going to put her on normal speed.
your siblings. You told us that you are Charles's sister. How many siblings were there in your family?
6.
And where did Charles fall into that?
He was number 3.
Who are the other siblings?
My oldest sister, Terry, then my next sister, Susan, then Charles, then Jerry, then me, then Bobby.
And where did you guys grow up?
We're in Lake Charles.
I have no idea.
Were you close with your brother?
Yes, I was.
I think that in this case, it could be, in this particular case, it could be that because, again, I haven't seen all this yet, but I've seen like some of it, but like it could be because there is a question that might come up that the prosecutor plans, like, knows they're going to ask. And it could be a question that involves her and Larry. Larry's the husband, right? And so that way the jury they're laying the foundation, right? So the jury would know who Larry is when it gets there. That's one potential reason. Yeah, like if the husband, because this involved the two of them, right? Like this whole thing, like Larry was, I mean, I guess they're not calling Larry as a witness, but they probably could have. But anyway, so yeah.
Did you know his wife, Lori Vallow?
Yes, I do.
Can you point her out in the courtroom and tell us what she's wearing?
Oh boy.
She's the defendant over there in the black jacket.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
Mistrial.
I want to talk to you sort of about Lori and Charles.
Wow.
Were you at their wedding?
No, they went to Las Vegas.
Do you recall what year they got married?
2006.
Did they have a reception that?
I don't know if that's what you'd call it, but there was a family gathering in March of 2006 at a ranch in near Austin, Texas, that we all went to.
Okay, kind of to celebrate that.
Yes.
Had your brother Charles been married before?
Yes.
Did he have any children from his prior marriage?
Yes.
How many?
2.
And who were they?
Cole Vallow and Zach Vallow.
And did you know if Lori had any children from a prior marriage?
Yes. Zach, Colby Ryan and Tylee Ryan.
When Lori and Charles got married, did Charles's 2 sons live with them?
Live with Charles and Lori?
Yeah.
No.
Did they stay with their mother?
Yes, they did. They visited, but they never lived there.
Where were they? Was that in Arizona or still in Texas?
In Austin.
I want to ask you sort of some of the ages of the children involved. In July of 2019, was Tylee still a minor?
Yes.
So she was still living with them.
Yes.
In July of 29, do you know if Colby was still a minor?
Yes. Oh, wait, no, Colby was not.
He was an adult at
He
that
was
point.
an adult.
And in July of 2019, were Charles's 2 sons, Cole and Zach, still minors or adults?
They were adults.
Okay. Did Charles and Lori have any children together?
They adopted my grandson, JJ.
And can you tell us how that worked out?
How that worked out,
Or
meaning
how did they get involved in adopting your grandchild?
Charles approached me about it one day. He called, and I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on then, and that was my son's child, and there was a lot going on. So I just told him then, look, I can't make a decision like that. We don't know how this is going to go. Just, well, just keep me in mind. Keep it in mind. And so I kept it in mind.
And do you recall, when did they adopt JJ?
It was final in July of 2014.
How old was he then?
He was 2.
Okay. Did JJ have any special needs?
Yes, he was autistic, and he was born 10 weeks premature.
Okay. So he took a little extra care.
He did, absolutely.
Do you recall, so if he was 2 and they adopted him, how old was he in July of 2019?
He was 7. We spent his 7th birthday together in Lake Charles.
So in July of 2019, to your knowledge, Lori and Charles still had 2 children under the age of 18 with them, Tylee and JJ?
Yes.
So if in July of 2019, Lori Vallow was saying she had 5 kids she was taking care of, you were unaware of the other 3?
There were not 5 there, no. There were 2.
Can you tell us about the relationship between Charles and JJ?
Charles was the best dad. I mean, he was always doting on him. The arrangement I figured out eventually was that if Charles was working out of town, Lori had him all by herself. And so when Charles got back to town, JJ was his to take care of 100%.
Would Charles bring JJ to visit your side of the family in Louisiana?
Oh, yes.
Did you regularly see him?
Yes. Once JJ learned how to fly, and excuse me, I need water.
Sure.
Once JJ learned how to fly, and that because he was autistic, something like that is a big deal for him, and he loved it. So he was a little flyer. He loved to go in the airplane.
What did your brother Charles do for a living?
He sold annuities. He was a financial planner.
And how long did you know him to do that?
If I had to guess, 20 years, I guess.
Did he work for others or have his own business? What do you recall?
He had his own business.
Had he previously any times ever worked for others?
Yes.
Okay. But in July of 2019, he had his own business.
Yes.
Did he have a business partner?
He did, yes.
Did his job require him to travel a lot?
He did. He would be gone 3 or 4 days a week on average. Sometimes he didn't have to travel, but he was just, but yeah, he would be gone 3 or 4 days a week when he would be working.
I want to ask you a little bit about Charles. Was he sort of a meticulous person when it came to paperwork?
Oh, yes. I mean, for when you're doing that type of work, you have to be meticulous and methodical, and you can't make any errors. You can't miss a dot or crossing a T, because it will get kicked back to you, and then it just causes a lot of delay and a lot of trouble. So he was actually, he said, there's never anybody I've ever trusted to do this for me. And I was like, well, I'll do it for you, because
All right, we'll stop here.
yeah.
So when Charles was working as financial planner, do you know if he had Lori help him with any part of his job?
I don't really know exactly what she did, but yes.
Okay.
But I don't know what she did.
prior to Charles being a financial advisor, did he have a very different career in sports?
Oh, he quit. I don't know if, I don't remember because I was quite young then, but he did, I believe he was drafted in the early 70s into the Houston Astros minor league.
So when you were growing up, did you see your brother playing baseball?
I was raised at a baseball field. If it wasn't Charles, Jerry played for years, my other brother, but Charles stuck with it, and that's how he got to college with a degree, with a scholarship.
So you got stuck many a night and a weekend having to be at the ball field with your brother.
Yes.
What position did your brother play?
He was a pitcher. He was very, very good. He was a left-handed pitcher, and they're very hard to hit against.
Okay. Did he bat right or left-handed?
He was left-handed.
Do you do everything left-handed?
Yes.
Right, left-handed? After your brother, well, let me ask you, do you know how long he played in the semi-pro?
I don't. He had moved to Houston, and but he blew out his knee, and that's ended that right there.
Did your brother stay in shape after that, even though he blew out his knee?
Oh yes, he was always doing something. Always bike riding, hiking, just anything. Gym, all he was very active.
So every time you saw him, he was taking care of himself.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you a little bit about religion. Did your family grow up in the LDS church or faith?
No, we did not.
Did you know Charles to ever convert to the LDS faith?
He did at some point during his marriage to Lori.
Okay. When Lori and Charles were married, did they always live in one state, or did they move?
No, they lived here in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, Chandler, Gilbert, and then they moved to Hawaii in 2014, and then they moved back late 2016 or early 2017.
Back
here to Phoenix area.
Do you recall where they were, what state they were in when they met?
When Charles and Lori met?
Yeah.
They were in Texas.
Texas, okay. In 2018 and 19, you told us that Charles and JJ would come visit you and the family regularly.
Yes.
In March of 2018, did you have a member of your family pass away?
Yes, my mother did in March of 18.
Did Charles come out for that?
Yes, he did. He was there for her services. Lori was not, and we felt like something was going on. Well, actually, my husband felt it before I did, and then when she didn't show for my mother's funeral, I just thought that was just appalling. It appalled me that she wouldn't even come to something like that with her husband.
What was your relationship like with Lori?
Because of the work I did, the company we owned, I was on the phone an extreme amount of time, all the time. So I really don't like to call people. I'm not a phone person. I'll text you all day long, but I really don't like to talk. And so Lori and I never really had a big phone relationship. It was a text here and there, but mostly Charles would keep me up to date as to different things that were going on, or what they were up to, or Charles would call. Yeah, Charles would call me mostly.
So you weren't it sounds like you weren't close with her.
When Lori and I were together, it was like we hadn't missed a minute. We just took up where we left off, and she's very outgoing, and she's very friendly and very easy to talk to, and so we got along rather well, and I loved her.
Okay. So continuing in 2018, do you recall seeing Charles and JJ coming out to visit you guys in October of 2018?
Yes.
What was that for?
Just
November of 2018, did you see Charles and JJ then?
we did. My husband and myself and my granddaughter. We went to Las Vegas, and Charles and JJ met us there for the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. I thought that was odd. He wasn't with his family. He said Lori was sick or Tylee was sick is what he told us, but he just wouldn't share what all was going on at that point. Then when he finally did, he unloaded it all.
So in 2018, did you have any idea there were any, let me say this. In 2018, did you have some concerns about their relationship?
Yes, it was for him to come as often as they were coming was odd, and he was just unsettled, and we knew something was going on, but he would never say.
Okay.
So he talked to us when he was ready.
When we get into 2019, did you start to see your brother more?
Yes.
First, without going into what Charles said, did you ever become aware finally that his marriage with Lori was in trouble?
Yes, I did.
In 2019, again, without going into what Charles said, did you ever believe that Charles was concerned for his safety?
Charles was absolutely concerned for his safety. Lori had sent me a text, I think it was on a Thursday, that she and Charles were fighting because of some stuff she came up with, and that she and JJ and Tylee were at a hotel. Well, I guess Tylee was, I'm not sure. And because she didn't want to have any fighting, so they went to a hotel. And I came out. I knew Charles the next day. That's when she sent it to me. And then I just really I didn't call Charles. I knew he'd call me, and he sure enough did. And he was a mess. And so I flew out the next day out here to help him with JJ, and just to come and talk to him and see what was going on. He was alone, and Lori's family turned their backs on him and JJ. Okay.
Let's just kind of break it all down.
All right.
Now you got a lot that you remember. So you said that you got a text from Lori indicating that she and JJ and Tylee were at a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said that Charles then called you maybe the next day.
Yeah.
And you came out here to Arizona.
Yes.
When you came out here to Arizona, did you become aware at that point that there was a big problem now with their relationship?
There was a huge problem now with their relationship.
And during this time when you had come out here. Do you remember approximately when that was?
Like the 1st of February of 2019, or the 2nd. It was right in there.
Okay, so just months before the murder.
When you came out here, did you then speak with Charles about his concerns for his safety? Just yes or no?
About his what?
His concerns for his safety.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
That's just yes. Is this the time where, well, let me ask it this time. When you came out here, did you see Lori?
No,
When you came out here, did anyone know where Lori was?
no, nobody was talking about where she was. Nobody would tell Charles where she was.
So your brother was trying to find where she was?
Yes, he was.
Where was JJ at this time?
He was with Charles, and that's what one of the reasons I came out was to help him with JJ, because he was quite a handful, and Charles was a mess. He was broken. He was a broken-hearted man.
So you come out here, Charles has JJ. Where's Tylee? Do you know?
She's, as far as we knew, she was staying at Lori's brother's. That's what we knew then.
Okay. Did you have any interaction with her?
No.
How long did Charles have JJ where he's looking for Lori and can't find her?
Well, that portion of the time was 58 days, and I knew how many days it was because every day Charles would say something. He would tell me.
So he was counting them.
He would count them.
Were you out here the whole time? What'd you do?
I could work remotely at the time, so I did stay out here a lot, often, but I would fly back. I was back and forth between Louisiana and here from February until the end of March, because at that point we moved Charles to Houston.
Okay. So the end of March, you said you were moving Charles to Houston. Was that with JJ?
Yes.
Why are you helping him move to Houston?
Because Charles told me that Lori did not want JJ anymore, or Kylie, or him. And I said, okay, well, look, what if you move to Houston and I'll be 2.5 hours away, and when you go out of town, I'll come and stay with JJ.
Is really interesting because Lori didn't want Charles or JJ or Tylee. Isn't that interesting? So that's the first time the jury has heard anything about Lori also not wanting the kids.
And so he was talking about hiring a nanny, and I said, no, I will be the nanny, and I'll come and take care of him when you have to work. And it's easy enough, and you won't have to pay a penny.
So when Charles has JJ, you're helping take care of JJ in this time period in February and March.
Yes.
What about Charles's business? Did you help with that at all?
Yes. I had to get my arms around the whole thing. All the payments that needed to be made, the accounts, the emails, all that stuff you have to change over and change the password and all that, so Lori couldn't access it any longer.
You said you had your own job. What were you doing at that time in addition to helping your brother?
My husband and I owned a coastal crew change. It was a transportation company for the offshore oil and gas and LNG industry.
Okay. So you're trying to work that job and help Charles with his business.
Yes, I had a really great assistant who helped me an awful lot.
Do you remember when you were packing up to move Charles to Houston.
Yes.
You there?
I was there.
Did Lori show back up?
She did. I was in the pantry in the kitchen, packing up the pantry, and I don't know what, just something caught my attention, and I walked out and she was standing there. She had her back to me. Charles was sitting at the table on his phone, and he obviously didn't realize that she was there. And then finally, when he hung up, he looked up and there she was, and he started crying, and she started yelling.
Do you recall what she was yelling about?
That, why did you take JJ? Why did you take JJ? Why did you take him out of school? Why are you moving? What are you doing? All this is your fault. It was just ridiculous.
So she'd been gone for 58 days, leaving.
No contact whatsoever.
And then she shows up at the house when you guys are moving out.
Yeah.
What was Charles's demeanor reaction? You said he was crying?
He was at first, but then he was just trying. Charles was a very soft-spoken man, and he was just trying to get a word in edgewise. And finally, Lori settled down a little bit, and they went and they talked for a while in the living room, or the I guess it's like a great room. And then they moved to the bedroom to talk. And I could still hear every now and then Lori would get a little loud, but they were talking. And then I remember that Lori came. Let's see, I was sitting at the dining table, and she stood next to me and she said, "I love you, KK." And I said, "Well, I love you too. I'm sorry this is happening." And she cried, and I didn't know what to do, really. So, I mean, I just was there. And then she walked off, and the next day she came. I don't know who came, but they got Tylee's belongings out of the casita where all of Tylee's belongings were.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if she got anything of hers. I really don't remember.
Okay. So are we now talking the end of March, beginning of April of 2019, when Charles is moving back to Houston?
Yeah.
Did he bring JJ with him?
Yes. Well, in order for me and Charles to move in, Larry, I flew out here and brought JJ back to Louisiana with me. And then my husband, Larry, kept him for a week while I flew back here to help Charles pack and then drive back to Houston.
All right, so you guys rented a big truck and drove it?
He drove the U-Haul. I drove his pickup.
All right. When you and Charles got to Houston, then did your husband bring JJ back?
Yes, he did.
Through all of this time with Charles, when he was looking for Lori while she was gone for those 58 days, did he still want Lori to be part of JJ's life?
He did. He never was trying to take that away from Lori, even though Lori didn't want him anymore. I still didn't. I never really understood that, but I guess he was just hoping for the best. But yes, he absolutely wanted her to be part of his life, Lori's life.
So once Charles moved to Houston, did Lori ever also move out there?
I don't know if you call it moved out there, but she did. She came that day on March 28th. Charles said, "Look, we're moving to Houston. you're welcome to come. I'll fly you out Sunday. And she said, no, I'm busy. I have a project or something she was doing in Hawaii. She said, it'll be about 2 weeks and I'll be in Houston. So whatever she did, she was gone for 2 weeks, 2 more weeks. It was a total of 72 days, I believe, she was gone altogether. And then she was there. She and Tylee moved in at Charles's, and Charles said that she slept in JJ's room with him.
So the first 2 weeks when Charles and JJ are in Houston without Lori, were you ever there to help with JJ or Charles' business?
No, Lori was there. I mean,
I guess
JJ was
before she moved there. The 2 weeks.
Oh, I think.
Or did you?
I had to go home for a little while, but Charles came like the weekend, and, so if I wasn't here, he was there.
Okay. So once you drove him there, you may have stayed to help him, and then you went home.
Yeah.
And you weren't there when Lori came to Houston?
No.
Okay. You told us that you had been helping your brother with his business, and I think you'd said something about changing passwords.
Yeah.
Was that to different financial accounts?
Right. Credit card, bank, stuff like that. Yeah, the password to Google, the password to,
all the things you use for business.
Yeah, yes.
And so when you started helping him, you had changed a lot of those passwords.
Yes.
At some point, did you become aware that, or at some point, did Charles stop asking you to help him with the business?
He did, and that's when Lori came back.
Okay. Now, you said that your brother worked in annuities, right?
Yes.
Right? That last part of the time when you were working with him up through sort of the end of March, beginning of April, were you aware of Charles coming into a large amount of money?
He was receiving an annuity, what do you call it? I can't think of the word right now, but he was receiving like $125,000 check for his commission for annuities, and Lori obviously knew that because she was there just a few days before that came into the bank. That was deposited into the bank. I had access to the bank, so I would watch that.
Okay. So even though Lori came back, you still had the passwords to look into Charles's account?
Yes.
Do you know how long Lori stayed in Texas with Charles?
It's like she wasn't there the entire time, but I mean, she was always traveling through May. I'll say towards the end of May. I'm not for sure exactly what day.
Okay. So at some point, a couple months later, you become aware that she has left Houston?
Yes.
Did you know where she went?
Yeah, she was back back here.
Did JJ come with her when she moved back here to Arizona?
He did.
And did you know, did your brother move back here?
No, he did not.
And with your access to the finances, were you aware whether or not Charles was paying for a house here in Arizona for Lori and JJ?
I really don't recall seeing that transaction. I really don't, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. At that time, I was selling my company, and so I had a lot going on at that time, and that's when it was really getting, the due diligence. The company was doing their due diligence, so I had to provide a lot of information for them, and so it really was perfect timing because then I got super busy with my company and I didn't have to deal with all of Charles's because Lori was back. Or
Let me ask you something else. Were you aware of when Charles met Lori, or they got married? Was she, do you know if she worked?
she was a hairdresser. She did work as a hairdresser and I don't know exactly when she quit working, but she didn't, I don't think she worked long if she did after they got married.
Okay. So for most of the time when you knew them to be married, you did not see her working outside the home.
No.
Did Charles, I guess, work so she could stay home with the kids?
Yes, he was fine with being a one income, you know, letting her stay home, tend to the kids, and he would be the money maker.
Now, I know that we've talked about Charles working in the area of financial planning. Did you know if Charles had a life insurance policy?
Yes.
That's something that, how did you learn about that?
Well, I mean, he had told my husband Larry and I years ago, he helped us acquire $1 million life insurance policy on, you know, for me and my husband each. And because he always had one and Lori had one. So that was nothing new or unusual to talk about.
Okay. At some point when you were helping Charles, when Lori had disappeared and Charles didn't know where she was, did you have a conversation with Charles about the beneficiary of his life insurance?
Yes. It was early February when I came here to help him with JJ, and he said, look, I'm going to take Lori off as beneficiary, and I'm going to put you as the beneficiary. And I was like, we talked about maybe a minute and a half about it. And I was like, okay, whatever. I really don't want to be that person, but okay. And I never followed up to see if he changed. I didn't know until I got the phone call after he was killed.
So the discussion you had of that change was during that time period when he couldn't find Lori, he had no idea where he was, and he was taking care of JJ?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you were helping him take care of JJ?
Yes.
So if something had happened to Charles during that time when Lori wasn't around, would you have taken care of JJ?
Yes, he would have come back to me and my husband.
So I want to kind of go to right around that July time period. Do you recall when was the last time, I'll start with, when was the last time you saw your brother, Charles?
That's a good question. Probably must have been in June.
And do you recall where that was or the
I think he came to
circumstances?
Lake Charles for the weekend.
Did you see JJ then?
Yeah, no. The last time I saw JJ was May 18th.
When was the last time you recall speaking or texting with your brother, Charles?
He texted me the night before he was shot, and just, hey, I'm going to be in Phoenix tomorrow, and you know, how's it going? And just a little short text. And I'm boarding the plane now, and I'll be back in Phoenix in a little bit. And then he told me a few other things he had planned, but that was not much, not a big deal.
Did
Nothing
you think
major.
he was going to Phoenix to just see JJ?
Yes.
did you know anything about any type of intervention?
No, he never talked. If he did talk to me about it, and I'm pretty sure I would have remembered that. But no, I know that he and Adam was his confidant during that time, Lori's brother. And so I know that whatever he was doing, you know, Adam was part of it. And, you know, they were just, I knew he was in good hands with Adam, because Adam, they loved Charles, him and his wife.
Do you have any knowledge of Charles wanting to get a place here in Phoenix so he could be closer to JJ?
I don't remember that, but I can't remember that. I mean, I don't know.
No,
I can't
okay,
answer that.
that's okay. I want to talk to you then about, so you talked to your brother, just kind of normal stuff as he was, before he got here to Phoenix. How did you learn that your brother Charles was dead?
It was on July the 12th. I was at a nail salon in Lake Charles, my granddaughter and I, and I got a call from his oldest son, Cole, and he said, "Hey, what is going on? I just got a text from Lori, and she said Dad's dead." And I said, wait, what did you just say?
Oh, here we
and
go.
He told me
Easy.
again, and I said, something's wrong with that. That can't be true. And I said, have you tried to call her? And Cole's like, yeah, she won't. I'm trying calling. She's not answering. He was freaking out. And I was like, okay, Cole, just give me a minute. Let me think about this. Let me see. And I'll call you back. I promise. As soon as I can figure this out. So I called my husband to tell him. And he said, okay, well, I told him that what the Cole said, and he said, hey, let me call you back in a minute. And so I was still at the nail salon trying to get out of there. And he called and he said, he's dead. I Googled him and he's dead. Alex killed him yesterday. And I mean, that was just like, it was horrible. I have to call my siblings and let them know. And everybody was freaked out. I didn't know what to do. But I did call Cole back and let him know that it was true. And just was telling him, let's keep in touch. You find out something, I find out something. We'll let each other know. And
did you try to reach out to Lori?
I've tried calling, texting Charles. I tried calling, texting Lori. And at some point, she texted me. She returned a text, something like, I'm having to deal with a lot of stuff and I'm busy. And she was too busy to even call his family to say that he was dead by her brother killing him. And
Take a breath. So you had tried to reach her and she was too busy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Did you ever, what was the burial plans? Did you ever get Charles back? What happened with him?
We ended up calling a detective, the detectives in Chandler, since that's where it happened. And we were able to speak to a detective, I don't know who, but we told them that I had already arranged us a flight for the next day. We were here by noon Saturday because I needed to know where JJ was. I didn't know what he had seen. I didn't know what he knew. I knew he would be, I knew it wasn't good. But I couldn't, we had to talk to the detectives before I did anything with Lori. So, and we had to wait till Sunday to meet with Nate Moffitt. And then when we talked to him is when I told him about the life insurance policy and that Lori, that I didn't know if Charles had ever changed it to me like he said he was going to do. And so I didn't know, but I just knew we had to get JJ because he was not safe with her.
Let me stop you there. I'm going to go back to Charles. Where was Charles buried, or where was what was done with his remains?
Well, this was before Lori knew she wasn't getting the money. She had him cremated, and he was mailed. He was FedEx or whatever over to my office, along with his Letterman's jacket from high school and a couple pair of cheap sunglasses and 1 or 2 watches. It was just a few little trinkets. And Charles had a watch collection, and she just sent some crap.
So she cremated him and FedExed him to you.
Yes.
Sent him to your work office?
Yes.
Now you're saying this is before she learned the life insurance policy was not going to be, she was not going to be the beneficiary. Did you set up like a service for Charles?
Yes, my family and I made arrangements for a memorial service to happen in Lake Charles on August the 3rd, which was, he was killed July 11th. So took us a little bit to put it together, but we did.
Did you talk to Lori about having JJ come out for Charles's service?
I think the last time I talked to Lori was she told us that she wanted, I asked her, what can we do in Houston? I was trying to be nice because I knew she had something to do with his murder. And I'm not one that can just lie off the cuff. I'm a bad liar. And so when I did talk to her, and it was a long, awkward conversation I had with her, but I was like, what do you want us to do with the stuff at the house in Houston? But when we got to the house in Houston, and she did, y'all please go do what you want to do with it, see what Cole wants, y'all split it up, y'all take it.
She gave you permission to go to the house in Houston and take whatever was there? Yes,
and when we got there, none of Charles's personal belongings were there, nothing at all. And that I couldn't figure out why nothing of Charles's or JJ's was there. Or wait, nothing of Charles's was there. Just his business files and the big furniture, but sofa, beds, stuff like that.
So you went there, you did that. How did you, and you told us that you did not know for sure if your brother had ever changed the beneficiary from Lori to you. How did you find out if that was done?
I think it was the following week. A lady from Banner Life, that's where it's policy, who wrote the policy. A lady called and said that I was the beneficiary. I was the sole beneficiary, and what was our address, and she wanted to verify a few things and to send out the check.
When you got that call, did you ever have Lori confront you about the life insurance policy?
Did I ever have Lori what?
Yeah, did Lori ever confront you about being the beneficiary for Charles's life insurance policy?
Yes. She didn't call and do it. She sent me a text one night, a picture or two of a screenshot. She took a screenshot of the change of beneficiary form with my name on it. And she said something to the effect of 5 kids and his sister gets all the money, or is that why you want JJ? Something to that effect, which it made no sense. I want JJ, period. That was a dumb statement by her.
So let me ask you this. So she told you again that she was left with these 5 kids, right?
Yeah, 5 kids. She had Colby and Tylee and JJ. And Colby was out of the house, so it was just Tylee and JJ.
So she's messaging you this, saying how upset she is because she has 5 kids to take care of.
Yeah.
And then she tells you that, is this why you wanted JJ to come to Charles's service?
No, I had already gotten the okay from her to come get him. I was going to fly here, pick him up, go back to Louisiana, keep him for a week and attend so he could attend the service during that time. And when she found out when she found the change of beneficiary form, she said that she was too busy. They were moving to Hawaii, and it would be too confusing for JJ to come, and he needed to be with her.
So after she found out and had confronted you about that change of beneficiary where you are now getting Charles's life insurance policy, she changed her mind and refused to let JJ go to Charles's service.
Yes.
Service. After this confrontation about Charles making you the beneficiary of the life insurance policy, did that pretty much end most of the contact you had with Lori, other than you reaching out to talk with JJ?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
All right, Cross.
Oh, boy.
Okay, here we go, guys. Not seen this yet.
Ms. Woodcock, where were you on July 11th, 2019?
At home in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Were you aware at all of the relationship between Charles and Tylee?
It was, let's say, it was a bit contemptuous. It seemed like there was always a lot of drama going on, and so that's all I knew. I didn't.
One thing I wanted to say too earlier is that as far as like Lori absconding with JJ and no one would know where they were and whatnot, it's really interesting because this was the first time that I feel like I had heard testimony about how Lori, I mean, maybe it came out in Idaho, I don't remember, but like how Lori had been saying before the murders, right? Like she had told Kay that she didn't want any of them anymore, like including the kids, right? And so, but then after that, she's absconding with JJ. So this is just my interpretation, is that the only reason she would like run off with JJ is to punish Charles, because she knew Charles wanted him and Charles loved him. Because, yeah, I mean, you guys, like the times when she would go missing or whatever, which is just really fucked up. And, I guess par for the course of Lori. So
He didn't say too much about it, and I didn't pry.
But you knew that there was some kind of contention going on with those two for
I
a
can't hear
while.
you.
I'm sorry. You did know that there was some kind of contention going on with those two for a while.
Yes.
we
Okay.
never
And
really
you weren't
learned the
really
nature
aware
of
of the
that.
events that happened that morning, were you?
The morning of the
July-
murder?
Of July 11th?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Because you didn't tell me.
Ooh! Get it, Kay. Get it. Damn.
Ms. Woodcock, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with Alex Cox to kill my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, but I saw a ton of evidence that did.
Thank you. No further questions.
So here's what I will say.
All right, redirect.
Really short. Here's what I will say. I think that Lori's is my personal interpretation. I think that Lori's advisory council told her to keep it short with Adam and to keep it short with Kay. Because she gave much more scathing lengthier and more awful in every way cross exams with the date, Nancy Joe, and then with her old friend Sarena. I think that when it came to the family members, her advisory council probably said to keep it short with everybody, I would think. But I think that Lori heeded that warning clearly. I mean, that was 3 questions. And with Adam, it was like maybe 7 or 8 questions. Well, half of it wasn't questions. They were just jokes about the fucking enchiladas and whatnot. And I think that was smart for her because both of them have a lot more to say than what they testified. And on cross, if she asks these other questions, in other words, there's a lot more damning shit that could have come out on cross that they wouldn't necessarily have come out on direct had she asked more questions. So I think that was smart. Wow.
Just briefly.
The redirect, you mean? It is brief. So
You were asked about the relationship between your brother and Tylee. How old was Tylee when Lori and Charles got married?
She was 3, or right around 3.
So was Charles in her life for most of her memorable years?
Exactly. Yes, he was.
And how old was she in July of 2019?
She was 16. Yeah,
So teenager.
Yes.
In terms of their relationship, are you saying that Charles and Tylee never had good times?
Oh, I'm not saying that. I saw them have good times, and it wasn't, it wasn't that they couldn't look at each other, or, it wasn't like that. But I mean, yeah, a teenage girl on one is hard anyway. But I do know that there was a lot of issues with her dad and Lori with her ex-husband and custody, and it was a mess.
So Tylee had a lot going on in her life.
Yes, she did.
And you would see her and Charles at times have difficulty getting along.
I never really saw anything that sticks out in my mind.
This is why I was wondering. Sorry, I just inhaled my water. Because this all comes from fucking Lori, right? This comes from Lori, the whole thing about them having these issues. And that's why I was wondering when Kay said that she thought there were some problems going on. I was like, we never really learn what those are. And, like in Lori's words, it's like Charles hated her. Obviously, that's not true. So this is interesting. We're getting a little bit more information here. She never saw anything.
out in my mind.
So it makes me wonder if it was something more that Charles told her, and it could be that the problems were related to how Lori was, you know, treating Tylee around him or something, right? I don't know. It's just interesting. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts. Because Charles, I mean, was, from everything that we know about Charles, he was nothing but an amazing dude, right? Think of it this way. Even if people think about teenagers that are acting up or whatever, the fact that he had so much patience with Lori to stay married to her for 13 years, and then even still, after she's going crazy and he was afraid for his life, to still not say anything bad about her to anybody, right? And to still be so patient and respectful towards her. And I mean, we've seen the body cam footage as well. I mean, he's worried about her, but he's not like talking shit the way people do oftentimes, even to people that they're, whether it's an ex or even a current spouse or boyfriend. I mean, people get really nasty, and he never did that, right? He never did that. He always took the high road, as they say. And so I have a hard time imagining there's anything that any teenager could do that could be that could be worse than Lori with calling him Ned Schneider and all that stuff, right? And then like, look at everything that Lori did that he saw her do. And he even knew she was cheating on him. I mean, so and yet he was still so patient with her. So I have a hard time believing that he ever lost patience with Tylee, even if it was ever warranted. I just have a hard time seeing that. I have a hard time seeing that Tylee could do anything worse than what Lori did. And I have a hard time seeing that Charles could ever be impatient with somebody considering his patience with Lori. I guess that's my point.
But I just know he'd tell me how it was just difficult. And as a step parent, it can be very difficult. I can attest to that.
So on July 11th, when Charles Vallow was killed, did you actually have any idea that your brother was dead?
None at all. How would I know?
So in terms of you learning that your brother was dead, it was never from Lori Vallow.
Or from her.
It was
from Google that my husband found.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Are there any questions for this witness from anyone on the jury? I don't see any questions. You can step down now.
Thank you.
Done. All right. Members of the jury, that's going to conclude trial for this week. No trial tomorrow. I'm going to try to start early on Monday and Tuesday only. So just to preview next week, I plan on, if you guys can all be here at 10 a.m., ready to start a little earlier than normal for Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be back to the 10:30 a.m. All right. I'll remind you to remember the admonition and avoid any sort of information about this case that you do not receive from this, that's outside of this courtroom, I should say. All right, thank you. We'll be at recess.
Okay, so they will be in a recess. So until Monday. Next week's going to be a big week, guys, because as I'm sure many of you guys, if not all of you guys, are well aware, we have Karen Reed's opening statement starting on Tuesday. So here's the plan. So the plan, next live stream will be today. It'll be probably tonight. And we are going to be watching Richard Allen's interviews with law enforcement. Long anticipated. I've been waiting for these to come out. He had 2 interviews, like I think a week or something close like that apart. Like I think it's, October 13th and October 26th, so 10 days apart. I am so happy this finally got released. We're going to watch those. And I have not watched them yet. I'm going to watch them for the first time with you guys. I've only heard whatever other people heard from being reported when they were showed for the first time at trial. So I've heard what there were, from people in the courtroom, but I've not watched them. I don't intend to watch them. We're going to watch them together for the first time. And I'm going to try to do it in a way where we maybe break it down into chunks where where we watch it and I don't pause it at all. And then when there's maybe a good pause point, for example, if somebody walks out, then we can maybe go back and watch it again where we talk it through moment by moment. I feel like that's going to be really necessary. Hi, Kane, welcome. But I'll also, be, of course, wanting y'all's input on how you want to do it, because sometimes it just depends. I don't know what to expect. It might be that it's the type of thing where it needs to be broken down section by section immediately. But I also know it's important to have have it uninterrupted. So that's why I'm thinking kind of like going through it in like chunks, uninterrupted, and then maybe going back through. But let me know if y'all have any suggestions. And then we're also going to listen to the confession calls. There's the so-called confession jail calls, right? Where I think there's 8 of those. We're going to listen to those as well. And I definitely agree. Yeah. Tyler was probably scared to go get Lori. Yeah, Lori. Yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, Tylee was getting rated dark as well, obviously, zombie and everything, right? I mean, clearly. I mean, Tylee was early on the scale to get rated, you know what I mean? Like before JJ and stuff, from what I recall from the timeline of things. So that'll be tonight. We're going to do the Richard Allen, so Delphi, right? The law enforcement interviews and the phone calls. I'm really, 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 really excited. It's all I can do to not watch any of it, but I'm going to wait. And then, over the weekend, we are going to get caught up on other things. I've not seen yet any new Karen Reed filings. Of course, we'll keep an eye out for that in Idaho. But barring that, we also need to get caught up on Shanna Gardner because there was a hearing earlier in the week. I think it was when Lori's trial was starting. So there was a hearing. There's some new court filings there. So we will do that. We're also going to have a members only live stream. I believe we'll do this tomorrow. And my plan was to do Never Have I Ever again. But if I can, again, my little test run on that movie that I keep talking about, The Room, looked like it was going to be okay. I'm going to try it with the entire video file and see. If that doesn't have any issues with copyright or whatever, we're going to watch that. And you guys are not going to want to miss it. It'll be a chance where you can watch the entire movie without having to pay for it. And it's going to be not to miss for sure. So if I can get that movie up again, the test run that I did of that little clip didn't have any issues. So if indeed it's going to be no problem with any copyright shit, then we will watch that entire movie and that'll be our next one. And then we will do Never Have I Ever after that. Just because I will be so excited to watch The Room. And as far as Never Have I Ever, I have a new way we're going to do it where it's going to be a lot better and it'll be a way where, people can jump in and out and not have to wait for rounds. And it's going to be awesome. I'm really excited. So and also I have another way that I'm going to keep score. It's going to be easier as well, from last time. So that'll be that'll be, okay. So tomorrow, if The Room has any issues, we'll do Never Have I Ever tomorrow. If there's no issues with The Room, we'll watch The Room tomorrow. And then we'll do Never Have I Ever, I don't know, sometime soon, very soon. So, Never Have I Ever dressed like a chair. Oh my God. We also have we have tons more we can do with the twin flames as well. I've got tons of that shit ready to go. It's like a bottomless pit of laughter and disturbingness. So speaking of dressing like a chair, so yeah, that we can also do at any point in time. But that is all that there is for Lori. We are all caught up here. So I'm still getting caught up on timestamps. I made a lot of progress. And yeah. So that'll be it for this one though, guys. Welcome, Twiz. Better late than never. Twiz and Kane coming in right at the tail end, saying hello. Twiz, also, it would be great to still have you on and have your thoughts about the hearing since you weren't able to do that when we covered it. It would still be great to have you have that. So that's something too we should figure out how to do as well. And you have your new special emoji. So, oh my God, I can't type. So you're very welcome, Candace. You're very welcome. So anyway, but I love you guys. Hopefully you guys can all join in tonight for Richard Allen, watching the, like I said, the interrogations, interviews. That's going to be really fascinating. I'm so excited for that. I'm so super excited for that. So, I don't have that stream set up yet, but I'm going to get that set up. And then, like I said, tomorrow we will do members only, and we still have to finish. Oh my God, that's right. Where we left off on Murdoch was cross exam, which is, in my opinion, the best cross exam of all time in a trial. So that we need to do as well. So there's plenty going on here. When for what, Twiz? I just mentioned a bunch of things. I compounded it. Sorry, I compounded it. Are you talking about for you to talk about the hearing, maybe? Are you talking about Delphi or the room or Murdoch? The things I just all mentioned. Oh, the next live. The next live, so that'll be tonight. That'll be Delphi. I'm waiting to hear back from some students. So if they're not going to have their lessons tonight, the last batch, because I've got people all over the world, right? The last batch, if the last batch doesn't have their lessons, it'll probably be like 10 o'clock my time. If they do have their lessons, it'll probably be 11 o'clock my time. Stoked. Awesome. Love it. Love it. Yeah, it's going to be insane. And we'll just see if I want to redirect that into something else. I don't know. We might go really long with that. I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, but that'll be it for this one. So other than that, thanks for being a squirrel. As always, been being awesome. Love y'all. And I'll see you guys next time.